Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. I am invincible after awakening the Superman gene. Chapter 41. Aha! Chin Mo's eyes lit up. Rapid healing has been buffed, meaning he will now heal faster if injured. In the same way, the same is true for quick recovery, which can make Chin Mo quickly make up for the spirit of excessive use of brain power. However, although recovery has been strengthened, it is not suitable for experimentation. After all, it's better to avoid such things as scratching yourself. So far, Chin Mo's 8 attributes have been strengthened once. After unremittingly accumulating light energy points, his strength is now very strong, as evidenced by the short battle last night. AB level awakener. One person can withstand an army, and can be placed in the security bureau as a first-level position. It is a high-level awakener that a 1,000-year-old family will attract. Now, it was easily killed by me. Quote, looking at the dusk outside the glass window, Chin Mo thought to himself, and a touch of emotion appeared on his face. It's just that in just over 10 days, he is already completely different from his previous self. As expected of a superhuman gene, each attribute is only 40 or 50 points, and it is already comparable to AB level awakened person. I don't know how powerful it will be if it is added to 400 or 500 points in the future. You know, he hasn't awakened skills such as thermal strength and flying. The smile on Chin Mo's face couldn't help but grow stronger. He glanced at the clock hanging on the wall. The hour hand had reached 5, and it was time to get ready to go home from get off work. Ding dong. Just at this moment, the phone rang suddenly. Chin Mo took it out and saw a text message from Li Mo was displayed on the screen, asking him to meet him at his old place tonight. He thought about it, and there was really nothing to do at night, so he sent a message back to Li Mo and readily agreed. 20 minutes ago, Li's private estate in Qingyang, study room. Secretary Li knocked on the door and walked into the study with a cup of freshly brewed premium tea. He put down a document and said, "Master, here is a detailed record about last night's mission." "Well, I see, you go down," Li Mo said lightly. Afterwards, he picked up the document on the table and opened it, carefully reading every sentence on it. The cause of death of AB level mimic system awakened person is that the inside of the body was hit by a huge force and the internal organs were all shattered. The documents recorded a lot, including the cause of death, suspicious points, and the guesses and judgments made by professionals from the Security Bureau. After Li Mo had read it once, he let out a long breath. This so-called backhand is really him, that kid Chin Mo. Although due to various factors such as heavy rain and smoke bombs last night, no one could clearly see what Chin Mo looked like. But such a fast speed, such terrifying power, and such a simple and rude way of attacking, definitely Chin Mo. At this moment, Li Mo made a decisive judgment. He leaned back on the chair, raised his eyebrows, and his eyes changed. He was really surprised. The last time Chin Mo took a short shot, the talent he showed had already shocked him, but now it seems that he is still conservative. What kind of terrifying growth rate is this? Or, that kid didn't attack with all his strength last time. Li Mo murmured softly. A few days ago, he was killing AC level in seconds, and a few days later, he suddenly had 2 B levels in a row. If it is the former, is this still human? But even the latter, a 23-year-old B grade, it's just as shocking. No matter what kind of speculation it is too terrifying. A few days ago, Li Mo thought that Chin Mo was just a genius. Now, he thinks it is necessary for him to revise his evaluation of Chin Mo. Chin Mo is not a genius, he should be a top genius. What is top? The S-rank awakener is the top. In other words, as long as there are no accidents along the way, Chin Mo's promotion to S-level awakened person is almost a certainty. This kind of talent far exceeds that of his peers, and what is even more rare is his temperament. Li Mo's brows gradually frowned. Ever since Chin Mo rejected his solicitation last time, he had completely given up on this idea. But now seeing Chin Mo's amazing talent and strength, the idea of wooing him can't help showing signs of resurgence. However, Li Mo has been with Chin Mo for many days, how could he not know what kind of person Chin Mo is? After a short thought, he finally gave up on the idea. Why? Chief Li sighed, and murmured to himself, I'm an S rank anyway, but I couldn't tell which department he was from. This kid is really good at hiding. Quote, he took out his phone, clicked on Chin Mo's contact information, and edited a text message for him. After Chin Mo's reply, Li Mo got up and walked out of the study, said something to the Duke's wife, and then left the manor alone. Secretary Li looked at his receding back, and a strange look of unknown meaning flashed in the depths of his eyes. Of course he knew that there was a high probability that Li Mo was going to see his little friend again. With his dual identities in the open and in the dark, he naturally guessed that the little friend should be Li Mo's second-hander. If I can know who Xiaoyu is and what his identity is, and then kill him. A murderous intent flashed in Secretary Li's eyes, but he quickly hid it in his eyes. The idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. He has no way to find out Chin Mo's identity, unless he follows Li Mo. However, following an S rank. Purely suicidal. The night in the imperial capital is always so dark. The rich charcoal smoke rushed into Chin Mo's nasal cavity, ruthlessly killing his sense of smell. He took a deep breath and said with a smile, "Sure enough, the barbecue is authentic on the side of the road." By the way, Chin Mo looked at Li Mo, who was sitting across from him suspiciously, and asked puzzledly, "Brother, why are you looking at me like that?" "I'm eating skewers." Hearing this, Li Mo picked up a mutton skewer, casually took a bite, shook his head and said, "No, nothing. It doesn't look like it. Brother, is there something bothering you again?" "Could it be?" Chin Mo was shocked and said, "Isn't it the big health care that my sister-in-law knows about?" Li Mo, it's okay not to mention this matter, but when it comes to mentioning his old face, it's a bit overwhelming. Going for a massage and letting the younger generations of other families bump into each other, what kind of thing is this? Li Mo blackened his face and scolded, "Where did you go yesterday?" "Go to work," Chin Mo said. "Did you really go to work?" "Just to go to work?" Li Mo asked. Well, Chin Mo was a little puzzled, but he still replied, "Yes, what else? What else can I do besides go to work? Yesterday was not a rest day." "Brother, what's wrong with you? Why do you suddenly care about this?" Quote. "Pack, then install it. You kid pretends to be like that." Li Mo sneered from the bottom of his heart. He obviously killed someone outside the imperial capital, but he could still say that he was at work so frankly. "If I wasn't the director of the security bureau, I would have been fooled by you kid." However, Li Mo did not expose him, and just quietly watched Chin Mo acting in front of him. What he didn't expect was that Chin Mo was really at work. "Isn't that what the security department does? I thought I would ask you to go fishing yesterday, but I didn't expect that it would rain suddenly at night." Li Mo explained with a random reason. Chin Mo nodded and echoed, "It did rain heavily yesterday, we can go fishing tomorrow." The topic changed so naturally, and Li Mo didn't try again. The two chatted and kowtowed casually, and the atmosphere gradually became active, with occasional bursts of laughter. Seeing Chin Mo's appearance, Li Mo felt more and more emotional in his heart. Such a genius, and it's rare to have such an affinity with him, but he was not born in Li's family, and his surname was never Li. With him in the security bureau, it would be much easier to deal with Tiandi. Li Mo couldn't help shaking his head, feeling very sorry in his heart. Nothing to say all night. The next day, the sun was shining brightly. The outdoor temperature in the imperial capital unexpectedly reached an astonishing 38 degrees, making it the hottest day this summer. The social animals on the street who were going to work were all holding parasols in one hand and small electric fans in the other, except Chin Mo. He is like a strange man, wearing short sleeves, specially walking in the most vicious part of the sun, and he still trots all the way. Facing the foolish eyes of passers-by, Chin Mo didn't care. In this hot weather, he wished it could be like this every day. At 8:50 in the morning, Chin Mo walked into the security bureau building on time and entered the 7th group of the security department. There are only Su Yin and a few ordinary colleagues in the office. None of the awakened ones are here, it seems that they haven't come yet. Chin Mo didn't think much, and sat down at his desk. He was holding a thermos, slowly sipping hot water, and was about to start today's fishing routine. However, less than 10 minutes after going to work, there was a sudden noise outside the office. Chin Mo was very curious. He and Su Yin exchanged glances, and then they followed each other to the door and looked towards the corridor outside. All 3 floors of the security bureau building belong to the security department. At this moment, People from other groups were standing at the door, smiling and clapping their hands. At the end of the corridor, Li Yuan stepped on high-heeled shoes and walked towards the 7th group with her long legs. She had no expression on her face, as cold as ever. But Li Changfeng and Wang Yan, who followed behind her, did not have her calm posture. Li Changfeng was holding a pair of golden plaques in his hand. Although he tried his best to conceal his inner excitement and put on a calm appearance, the corners of his mouth involuntarily raised and his chin raised subconsciously exposed his heart. Brother Changfeng, congratulations. The 7 groups have made great achievements and the director personally commended them. We are really envious, Lu Yongchuan said with a smile. He and Li Changfeng are acquaintances. Not long ago, they got very close in the Imperial Hospital, and both of them are F level. But who would have thought that in less than half a month, Li Changfeng not only advanced to E level but also made great achievements. Lu Yongchuan's back molars were about to be crushed with jealousy, but there was nothing he could do. What's more, he still needs to lower his stance at this time, and said proactively, Brother, I formed a game tonight, and specially hosted a banquet for the brothers of the 7th group to celebrate. Brother Changfeng can give me some face. Well, Yang Chuan is sincere, and all of us will be there. Li Changfeng patted him on the shoulder and said lightly. He casually handed the golden sign to a colleague beside him, then approached Lu Yongchuan, and said in a low voice, Have you invited us, Team Leader Li? Brother Changfeng has to speak up. How can I invite Team Leader Li? Lu Yongchuan smiled wryly and spread his hands. Hearing this, Li Changfeng was slightly taken aback. He remembered the last time he hosted a banquet in the advanced group to invite Li Yuan, but in the end he was rejected. This time, it's still the case if you think about it, he can only hit a wall if he goes. So, Li Changfeng said, you know the temperament of our team leader Li. She doesn't like these things the most. Let's just have a few of us tonight. Lu Yongchuan nodded in agreement. He watched the back of Li Yuan walking into the 7th group, and his eyes naturally swept to Qin Mo and Su Yin. Brother Changfeng, do those people need to be called? He pouted in Qin Mo's direction. Li Changfeng followed the trend, frowning slightly. Before he could speak, someone beside him interrupted. They are ordinary people, what can we call them? This time, it's just luck, driving the car, and taking credit for it, otherwise, how could it be? Speak carefully, don't say what you shouldn't say. Li Changfeng glanced at him lightly. The person who spoke immediately nodded resentfully, and said no more. After all, things about missions need to be kept secret. However, his attitude has been clearly conveyed in place, and Lu Yongchuan immediately understood. Seeing them fighting fiercely with people from other groups, Su Yin, who was standing at the door, asked doubtfully, what are Li Changfeng and the others muttering about? They said they're going to have a party tonight, and they're not going to call you yet, Qin Mo continued. Su Yin glanced at him and asked, what's wrong? And how did you know? I guess. Qin Mo shrugged. Cut, I believe you. Su Yin gave him a white look. While the two were talking, Li Yuan's voice suddenly came from the small office. Come in. There are only a few ordinary people like Qin Mo in the office, so Li Yuan is naturally calling them. Hearing this, the two stopped standing at the door to watch the excitement, turned around and entered the small office together. After everyone arrived, Li Yuan bent down and opened the drawer on the right, and took out 4 yellow paper bags from it. One for each, this is your reward for this mission. The paper bag contained 100,000 yuan, which was about the same as their annual salary, and it was Li Yuan's own pocket. Although the above commendation is aimed at the entire 7 groups, it basically has nothing to do with Qin Mo and the others. Li Changfeng and the others have accumulated military merits, which will be helpful for future promotions. But Qin Mo and the others didn't have this opportunity. If they weren't awakened, they would have no chance of military achievements and promotions. However, Li Yuan, as the leader of the 7th group, did not forget Qin Mo and others. It's a pity that she has nothing to offer, so she can only send a little money. Once the bonus is paid out, it's fine. Several people walked out of the small office one by one, but Su Yin came to Qin Mo's side and said excitedly, the team leader is really generous. Team leader, it's not short of money after all. Qin Mo smiled. Su Yin nodded approvingly. Although she didn't know Li Yuan's real identity, she also knew that she was a child of the Li family in Qingyang. 400,000 may be a huge sum of money to other people, but to Li Shi of Qingyang, it is nothing at all. How does the handsome guy plan to spend the money? Su Yin winked at her. Well, I'm going to save it up to be my wife's book, Qin Mo said seriously. This is too boring. Su Yin curled her lips, then squeezed his shoulders, leaned closer and said, tomorrow is a 2-day holiday, and so many bonuses have been paid out. Do you want to go out with my sister to have fun and relax? As soon as the words came out, she patted her chest and said proudly, I know a very good outdoor swimming pool. My sister invites you to go. Hearing this, Qin Mo turned to look at her suspiciously. Sister Su, swimming is not very good. Aren't you in your menstrual period? My relative just left today, so you can say whether to go or not. Ahem, then, I'm invited by a beautiful woman, so I must go. Qin Mo glanced down incredulously. That's fine, let's make an appointment. Su Yin smiled lightly, revealing a dimple, humming a little song and sat back opposite Qin Mo. It was obvious that she was in a very good mood. Seeing her like this, Qin Mo slowly raised the corners of his mouth as he glanced at her quietly. He leaned back on the chair, looked at the scorching sun coming in from the glass, and squinted slightly. The time for fishing always passed quickly, and the clock hanging on the wall reached 5 o'clock without knowing it. As the sun slanted to the west, a familiar warm current appeared in Qin Mo's body. He opened the Jin Awakening panel, glanced at it, and his face suddenly showed joy. Light energy points. 22, freely assignable. Hey, I've accumulated so much, it's really a good sunny day. Qin Mo secretly exclaimed. The more light energy points, it means that his various attributes will be stronger. Looking at the Jin panel, Qin Mo carefully considered the distribution plan. He has always wanted to develop in a balanced manner, but as time goes by, hearing, intelligence, breathing, and recovery have dropped a lot compared to the other 4 attributes. Today's light energy point is just right to mention the weak attributes. Ever since, Qin Mo decided to allocate 5 points to each of the 4 intelligence items, and the warmth quickly flowed through his body. As for the remaining 2 points, he threw them to his eyesight, but who knows? Vision. 52, awakening skill, telescopic vision. Unexpectedly, the vision has awakened a new skill. The smile on Qin Mo's face grew stronger, which was beyond his expectation. He originally thought that the next awakening would have to be around 10 o'clock no matter what, but he didn't expect it to be so soon. Telescopic vision. Vision has greatly improved, can see dozens of miles away, it seems. Qin Mo turned his head to look outside the glass, and at the same time murmured to himself, we are getting closer and closer to awakening thermal vision. 10 kilometers, as far as the eye can see, grass roots on the side of the road, rings on women's hands, pebbles stuck on car tires. Everything can be seen clearly, as if it is right in front of your eyes. This feeling is like installing a telescope in his eyeballs. Of course, 10 kilometers is not his limit. Qin Mo continued to look farther away, until it was 15 kilometers before it began to blur. It's a full 30 miles away, which is much better than before. The changes brought to him by the new skills are astonishing. Moreover, telescopic vision does not affect other vision skills, and he can still use perspective, thermal imaging, and microscopic vision within the scope of this long-distance vision. The effect of superimposed use is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. After a short experiment, Qin Mo looked away, tidied up the table in front of him, and was about to leave work. He walked out of the security bureau building with a yellow paper bag, and he got into a tangle. Should I go to have a good meal, or buy something to cook at home? Qin Mo thought about it, and finally decided to go home and cook, and have a good meal when he goes out with Su Yin tomorrow. After thinking it over, Qin Mo walked towards home. But he didn't want to. Just as he raised his leg, the horn of a car suddenly sounded behind him. Qin Mo turned his head and saw Li Yuan slowly rolling down the car window, and said to him lightly, "Get in the car." The clean and neat 2 words made Qin Mo stunned in place. What the hell? What the hell is Li Yuan doing? Get in the car first, I have something to talk to you about. Seeing that he didn't move, Li Yuan continued. Oh fine. Qin Mo opened the car door with a strange thought, and sat in the co-pilot's seat. Then, the engine started, and Li Yuan drove towards Guanghong Street. Qin Mo was even more confused. Isn't this the direction of his house? Ah, "Leader, what do you want from me? Tomorrow is a vacation, what are your plans?" Li Yuan looked at Lu and asked lightly. What is the problem? Qin Mo was stunned and thought carefully, but he still blurted out, "There is no arrangement, I just asked Miss Su Yin to go swimming tomorrow." Hearing this, Li Yuan turned his head slightly, glanced at him, then nodded and said, "Well, swimming, good exercise." Qin Mo. Several black lines crept up silently on his forehead. Li Yuan also seemed to feel that she had said something nonsense. She opened her mouth, and said with some embarrassment, "Actually, I want to ask you for a favor. Tomorrow, I'm going to move to another place. Although I called a moving company, I don't understand many things about the new house, so I would like to ask you to help me find out. However, since you have an appointment tomorrow, forget it." Quote. Say it earlier, isn't it just moving, it's a trivial matter. Qin Mo relaxed in his heart. He thought Li Yuan was looking for him for something, but it turned out to be this. Qin Mo understood what she didn't understand very well. The eldest lady of the Li family in Qingyang, she has been the apple of her eye since she was a child, and her 10 fingers do not touch the spring water. It is quite normal to not understand these things. Qin Mo didn't think much, and said casually, "If the team leader is not busy, the day after tomorrow will do, and I have time the day after tomorrow." That, Li Yuan turned a corner, nodded and said, "That's fine, I'll treat you to dinner afterwards, and you can choose the place. It is reasonable to find someone to do errands and treat guests to dinner." Obviously, Li Yuan has learned some ways of the world after leaving the Li family in the past few years. "This is what the team leader said, so I'm not welcome." "Well, yes, I will text you the specific location later." "Good. In this way, even if it is an appointment." The two of them suddenly didn't speak, and an atmosphere called embarrassment gradually filled the car. It was still a while before he got home. Qin Mo was thinking about how to find a topic, but he found that the picture of Li Yuan washing his feet would always pop up in his mind involuntarily. "I knew I wouldn't watch it so many times." Qin Mo cursed himself inwardly. Immediately afterwards, he suddenly asked in a strange way, "Would the team leader go swimming with us tomorrow?" As soon as these words came out, Qin Mo regretted it. Inviting two good-looking women to swim at the same time seems to be a fatal problem. Sure enough, Li Yuan immediately refused after hearing it. "No need, you go." "Ahem, okay then." Qin Mo touched his nose, feeling a little pity. Although he said, he usually reads everything he should and shouldn't see. But subduing this kind of thing, the excitement of poking is completely different. Who can refuse to step on the lonely splash with two beauties in swimsuits? After Li Yuan finished speaking, the car fell into silence again. She glanced at Qin Mo slightly, and saw that he seemed a little downcast. Seeing this, Li Yuan opened his mouth slowly and explained, "The main reason is, I am moving, and I don't have a suitable swimsuit for the time being." Hiss. Qin Mo. Doesn't the subtext of this sentence say, "Then, I'll call you next time"? Qin Mo asked tentatively. "Well, good." Li Yuan nodded. This time she did not refuse. It was obvious that her usual cold face and vigorous and resolute face were just her disguise. The one with the pink footbath in the small office is the real Li Yuan. However, in front of Qin Mo, she is willing to properly remove some disguise. That's why she chose to ask Qin Mo to help her move. When they were in the Imperial Hospital, the two of them briefly got along in the ward. Li Yuan had a good impression of Qin Mo, and some of his ideas even affected her. Soon, the car stopped at Guanghong Street. Opening the car door, Qin Mo stepped out of the car, turned around and said goodbye to Li Yuan, and then the car started up again. Seeing the taillights gradually disappearing from sight, Qin Mo took out the house key from his pocket. He really didn't expect that his weekends for the next 2 days would be so full. Qin Mo smiled, shook his head, and walked into the bathroom. The next day, morning. An outdoor swimming pool. Qin Mo, who only wore a pair of swimming trunks, was lying on a chair, showing off his abs wantonly, attracting the scorching eyes of a lot of girls in the pool. Since he awakened the superhuman gene, he has continuously added points to various attributes, and his body shape has undergone tremendous changes compared to before. Although the current Qin Mo can't be called perfect, he can be regarded as a first-class handsome guy. "Yo, the handsome guy is really welcome." Su Yin suddenly walked out from the side, lay down beside Chin Mo, and joked with a smile. Underneath her is a pair of swimming briefs with basically no fabric, and the bikini outside the chest is very material, but Su Yin's chest is too broad. Sister Su has a really good figure. Chin Mo glanced back and forth several times before admiring. That must be. It doesn't matter what school my sister graduated from. How can those weak girls compare? Su Yin raised her chin, her legs danced, and she posed in an extremely seductive pose. Her body curve was quite astonishing. Let's go, it's time to go into the water. My sister is a good swimmer and scuba diver. She was among the best in the military academy. Su Yin got up and stretched, and walked towards the swimming pool. But before taking 2 steps, she suddenly turned around and asked, "Oh, by the way, Chin Mo, can you swim? Do you want my sister to teach you?" Hearing this, Chin Mo shook his head and said with a smile, "No, but I will soon." Ha, Su Yin was puzzled. I saw Chin Mo got up and walked to the pool, looked at the swimming coach who was teaching others not far away, pouted and said, "Nang, things like swimming, just see if you can do it." "You can brag." Su Yinming showed disbelief. Chin Mo didn't explain, he just smiled and didn't speak. It is clear at a glance and silently urged. 5 minutes is very slow, but also very fast. Su Yin just got into the water and got used to the water temperature. She leaned against the pool and looked at Chin Mo, who was serious and seemed to be studying, and couldn't help laughing out loud. The chuckle interrupted Chin Mo's thoughts. He looked away and raised the corners of his mouth. "How about it? Have you learned it? Little handsome guy, don't be brave, or let my sister teach you step by step." "Then Sister Su wants to guide me personally. I've always been stupid, and I'm afraid it will be difficult to learn if I don't have an hour." Chin Mo deliberately emphasized the word, "close to me." You want to take advantage of my sister." Su Yin gave him a white look. Chin Mo coughed lightly, and then said, "No way, I have already learned it." When the words landed, he jumped into the water instantly, his legs swung like fish, extremely flexible. Su Yin couldn't help being stunned. She stared at Chin Mo's actions in astonishment, and her face gradually turned black. "Okay, so you lied to my sister, and you said you can't swim, so let's pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger here, right?" Su Yin gritted her teeth. "Hey, I didn't. I really just watched it." Chin Mo poked his head out of the water. "It's impossible to be a fool when you're an older sister. How can you look like a novice who just learned this? I won't be fooled by you," Su Yin said. As soon as these words came out, Chin Mo didn't continue to explain. After all, it's hard to explain clearly. But he didn't lie, he really couldn't 5 minutes ago. Chin Mo just learned a little bit faster. Well, Sister Su is right. Hey, since you can swim, why don't you come and compete with your sister? Su Yin raised her chin subconsciously. She has always been competitive, otherwise she would not have chosen to apply for the Imperial Military Academy back then. When he was in high school, his genes had not been awakened for a long time, and once his 16th birthday passed, he completely lost the qualification to become an awakened person. Su Yin didn't want to admit defeat. She thought that as long as she worked hard enough, she would be no worse than the awakened ones in the future. She didn't know how ignorant her stupid idea was until she entered the military academy and saw the power of the awakened with her own eyes. However, abundant physical training still makes Su Yin stronger than most ordinary people. "How about it, dare you?" she continued to shout. Chin Mo shook his head with a smile, and said, "Dare to dare, but I don't have a lottery, and I don't have enough motivation." "Then what do you want to bet on?" Ahem. Chin Mo's gaze flicked back and forth on her body unscrupulously. Seeing this, Su Yin immediately understood. She suddenly smiled charmingly, swam to Chin Mo's side, and whispered, "If my sister loses, I will do whatever you want tonight. Is there any motivation now?" "This." Chin Mo stroked his chin and said in a deep voice, "I have to think about it." "Die you." Su Yin's pretty face was furious, and he flicked his brains, saying, "Just bet like this. You are not allowed to choose." Okay. Afterwards, the two began to prepare. Su Yin dared to bet on this, which is enough to see how strong her confidence is. She thinks that it is absolutely impossible for her to lose. Coincidentally, Chin Mo also thought so. Although he just learned to swim, with his current strength, speed, endurance, and physical coordination. Even if Su Yin is 30 meters away, Chinmo can't lose. Soon, the two of them made their preparations. After Su Yin's countdown ended, she flew into the water like an arrow flying from the string. She used all her strength, and in less than a minute, she turned back to the starting point. Leaving out of the water, Su Yin showed a smile on her face. She felt that she played very well this time. Small sample, I'm still comparing myself to my sister, I don't want to dump you. While muttering, she looked back. But at this sight, the second half of the sentence on the edge of her mouth was suddenly stuck. Su Yin frowned, her eyes were blank. What about people? It's not sinking, is it? The thought came to her, and her face turned pale instantly, but at this moment, Chinmo's voice suddenly came from behind. Sister Su, what are you looking at? Su Yin looked back fiercely, and saw Chinmo standing on the bank, looking down at her, and said with a smile. Remember to come to my room tonight. Su Yin. She is very confused now, and she still doesn't understand what happened, but after thinking about it, she suddenly understands. She had lost the match just now. How is this possible? Su Yin said in a trembling voice. Hearing this, Chinmo, who was lying back on the chair to bask in the sun, said lazily, Sister Su, you won't want to renege on your debt, will you? I don't believe it, how could you be so fast? Su Yin climbed ashore and walked quickly to his side. Fox asked, you didn't turn back halfway, did you? No way, so many people around just now saw it. Sister Su can go and ask. If it doesn't work, we can still watch the surveillance. Chinmo complained. Seeing that he didn't feel guilty at all, Su Yin had some doubts about herself. Is it true? But there is no reason. She murmured softly, her brows furrowed tighter and tighter, and her eyes changed. After a long time, Su Yin suddenly bit her lip, turned her head and said to Chinmo. You're lucky if you win this time. I won't believe you if you compete with your sister in diving again. Chinmo glanced at her, spread his hands, and dissuaded him. This is unnecessary, and Sister Su, you lost yourself to me, it seems that there is no bet. Then add another night. Su Yin gritted her teeth. Ah, okay. It was hard for Chinmo to refuse such a thing. Afterwards, the two walked to the special diving area. Su Yin took a deep breath and jumped into the water. She was smart this time, and she didn't take her eyes off Chinmo underwater, so she was bound to stare at her to death with her own eyes. However, as expected, Su Yin lost again in a mess. Climbing to the shore, she panted heavily, looked at Chinmo like a monster, and said in disbelief. Are you a fish? Don't you need to breathe? Sister Su, actually, I just held my breath a little longer. Chinmo shrugged, but he was still telling the truth without hiding anything. Now, his breathing has reached 43 points, not to mention the 10 minutes just now, he stayed underwater for 4 or 5 hours and nothing happened. Isn't this just holding your breath for a little longer? Comparing Su Yin with Chinmo is purely asking for trouble. Strictly speaking, Chinmo is no longer a human being, he is already invincible. In other words, at the very beginning, Su Yin had already lost herself. Sister Su, do you want to come again? I don't mind winning a few more nights. I will never compete with you again. Su Yin said angrily. Then, she suddenly came to Chinmo's side, grabbed his arm and swayed it from side to side, showing a gesture of pity for me, and said. Oh, does the little handsome guy really have the heart to do bad things to my sister? Sister, woohoo, this is the first time for my sister. Mom, then this bet cannot be voided. Chinmo's eyes lit up. Bad guy, give you a punch. Su Yin instantly recovered, pushed Chinmo down, and fought with him. The two of them played in the swimming pool for a day, and went to the reserved restaurant in advance to have dinner together at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. At about 5 o'clock, the two separated. Facing the evening sun, Chinmo walked on the street alone with his hands behind his head. In the end, he still didn't really spend the night with Su Yin as promised in the bet. Chinmo still knows what to do and what not to do. Unless, Su Yin herself is willing. But Chinmo has been with her for so long, how can he not know her temperament? She's the ultimate gag. Thinking of this, Chinmo couldn't help smiling and shaking his head. Then, within a few steps, his eyes moved suddenly, his eyes focused on his eyes, and he quietly opened the Gene Awakening panel. Light energy points. 20. Freely assignable. Although the weather today is not as clear as yesterday, Chinmo has accumulated a lot of light energy points after spending a day in the open-air swimming pool. As usual, vision, strength, speed, and defense are allocated 2 points each, and the remaining 12 points just add 3 points to the other 4 attributes. In this way, the balanced development of intelligence, hearing, breathing and recovery distance will go further, and the gap will not be continuously widened. After the light energy points were distributed, the warm current quickly spread to every corner of Chinmo's body. At the same time, breathing. 46. Awakening skill, Hurricane. Hurricane. Chinmo pondered in his heart, this is already the 3rd skill of breathing. In addition to the turtle's breath at the beginning, exhaling ice and hurricane are very powerful means of attack. Needless to say the former. The latter, as the name suggests, Chinmo can inhale a large amount of air into his lungs, store and compress it before exhaling, creating a powerful hurricane. The warm current covering his body gradually subsided. Chinmo looked around, only to see that there were not many pedestrians, and most of them were cars. His mind moved slightly, and he took a deep breath. Countless air flows along his mouth and nose into his lungs. Chinmo's movements were very slow, and the airflow was invisible and colorless, so it did not attract the attention of passers-by. Then, he controlled the strength and spit out slowly. Suddenly, 5 meters ahead, a small cyclone appeared out of thin air, stirring up dust on the ground. The cyclone appeared so abruptly that it startled the people on the street, and the car horns sounded. But before taking a few breaths, the cyclone dissipated by itself after moving a few meters. It was as if nothing had happened just now, and everything was a false alarm. The pedestrians on the side of the road patted their chests and breathed a sigh of relief. But they didn't notice that Chinmo, who just walked by, was smiling all over his face. If I use all my strength, the hurricane created should be about 10 times stronger than the size just now, and that power is extraordinary. Chinmo continued to ponder in his heart, the attribute of breathing will become stronger in the future. It seems that it will not be difficult to easily blow a tornado that engulfs a city. The strength of skills is closely related to the points of the attributes themselves. Now he is just starting out, and the light energy points have not been accumulated for many days at all. In short, the older he gets, the stronger he gets. Today's superhuman gene has finally begun to gradually show its own strength. Chinmo couldn't help but sigh in his heart. After the new skill hurricane test, Chinmo was in a good mood and ran home quickly. He cleaned the room first, threw the sheets and quilts that should be changed into the washing machine, and then went to the bathroom to take another cold shower. After finishing all this, Chinmo just lay down on the sofa. He just took out his mobile phone to check the news from the border. Unexpectedly, Li Yuan actually sent him a text message 15 minutes ago, but he was busy at the time and didn't see it. I'll pick you up at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Seeing the content, Chinmo scratched his head. He originally said that he would just go slowly while basking in the sun. However, since there is a special car to pick up and drop off beautiful women, it would be foolish not to take it. Okay, Chinmo replied a text message. He had just pressed the send button, but unexpectedly another call popped up on the screen. It was from Li Mo. Chinmo didn't think much about it, and put it to his ear after connecting. Hey, brother, good evening. I'm going to play chess tomorrow. No way, brother, I have something to do tomorrow. What's up? The leader is moving, I have to help, and I have a dinner appointment with her tonight, we brothers have to change the time. Chinmo said leisurely, leaning on the sofa. Of course it's the leader of a beautiful woman. I don't think I forget my friends after seeing girls. Hey, that's all right, next time I will invite me. The phone was hung up quickly. Li Mo shook his head and smiled dumbly. This stinky boy, he also said that he didn't forget his friends because of girl. The young man is indeed full of energy. He didn't have any thoughts about Chinmo's refusal, and the relationship between the two has always been very casual. Help the leader move, Li Mo murmured softly, and suddenly heaved a long sigh. Seeing this, the lady sitting next to him smiled and asked, I heard from the people below that Xiaoyuan's child will also move to a new home tomorrow. You father, do you want to go and see? The two of you didn't see her last time she came back. Quote. Hearing this, Li Mo thought about it for a while, then shook his head and said, No, her temperament is up to me. If we meet, we will inevitably have a quarrel. You father and daughter, I really don't know what to say. Madam sighed. She is still young and has little experience outside. It will be fine after a few years. The responsibility and burden of the Li family in Qingyang will eventually fall on her. Li Mo said lightly. Knife-mouthed tofu heart, Madam said quietly, but Li Mo never continued to speak. The next day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Li Yuan's expensive sports car stopped in front of Qin Mo's house on time. She opened the car window, looked outside, and was about to shout. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo appeared from her right side at a trot, opened the door and sat down on the co-pilot's seat. Li Yuan was slightly taken aback, then asked in astonishment, "You got up so early?" "I have the habit of getting up early and running in the morning, and the sunrise every day is absolutely not to be missed," Qin Mo replied with a smile. This day, Li Yuan glanced at the venomous sun, and asked doubtfully, "Don't you feel hot?" "The hotter the better, sunny days are best for morning jogging." Hearing what he said, Li Yuan became more and more confused, but she didn't continue to ask, turned the key and started the engine of the sports car. 15 minutes later, the destination was reached, and the two got off the car one after another. Looking at the two-story villa in front of him, Qin Mo's eyes were a little strange. He didn't expect that Li Yuan's new home was actually quite close to where he lived, both in Baiyun district. It's just that one is an ordinary residence in Baiyun district, and the other is a street for the rich. It's closer to the bureau, it's convenient to go to work, and it's far away from the downtown area, so it's relatively clean, Li Yuan said. Qin Mo followed her into the villa and took a tour. Many of the furniture in the villa are ready-made, but the bedroom is very empty. "Team leader, isn't it lonely for you to live in such a big house?" Qin Mo asked curiously. But as soon as he said these words, he suddenly felt very ambiguous, so he quickly explained, "Well, I didn't mean that, the team leader. It's okay, it's actually fine, I'm used to it." Li Yuan waved his hand, not paying attention. "Oh," Qin Mo nodded. After the two chatted for a while, the moving company brought her old furniture downstairs. Qin Mo looked down from the balcony on the second floor, and saw that there was actually a 2-meter-long double bed on the truck, and the sheets and quilt covers were all pink. He subconsciously turned his head to look at Li Yuan, his expression a little stunned. As if his little secret had been discovered, Li Yuan subconsciously dodged his eyes and said in a low voice, "I recognize the bed more, so I simply moved here with the bed." "Ahem, I understand, I understand." Qin Mo coughed lightly, but he was not overly surprised. After all, he already knew what Li Yuan was like in his heart. But who would have thought that Li Yuan, who is usually so indifferent, still loves pink secretly like a little girl? "I'll go down and help." In order not to embarrass Li Yuan, Qin Mo thoughtfully found an excuse to slip away temporarily. Later, after the bed was moved into the bedroom, he helped Li Yuan buy some daily necessities and tidy up the villa. "I have been busy until after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it is considered to be completely done." On the second floor of the villa, Qin Mo sat on the sofa and asked Li Yuan, "Do you want something to drink? Coffee or milk tea?" Li Yuan thought for a while, and then said, "Coffee, I'll go with you, and treat you to dinner by the way." "That's fine." Qin Mo got up and followed Li Yuan, took a few glances at her long legs, and then went out and sat in the sports car. As soon as the car started, a familiar warm current appeared in his body. Light energy points. 18, freely assignable. Today's light energy points are less than yesterday's, but compared to the beginning, they are quite a lot, thanks to the imperial capital gradually entering midsummer. The corners of Qin Mo's mouth slowly turned up, leaning on the seat, and began to distribute today's light energy points. Li Yuan didn't notice it. Among them, 8 points are naturally the 4 attributes of eyesight, needless to say. As soon as he allocated it, the warm current immediately began to surge rapidly. Speed, 53, awakening skill, double the speed of sound. Hiss, the speed actually broke through the limit again. Previously, Qin Mo's speed had surpassed the speed of sound, but the speed was limited, around 500 meters per second. Now, as the speed is continuously added, the quantitative change finally leads to a qualitative change, and the speed is successfully increased to 680 meters per second, which is double the speed of sound. And that's the base speed. If he exploded with all his strength, his speed could be even faster. What's the specific limit? I'll just go home tonight and try it out. Chin Mo thought to himself. There is no doubt that it will not take long to continue to improve at this speed, and the distance of 100 miles is only an instant. In short, as soon as the thought in my heart flashed, it had already appeared from one side of the city to the other. The speed became faster again, which brought a sincere smile to Chin Mo's face. But he wasn't overly happy, and soon calmed down and began to distribute the remaining 10 light energy points. After these 2 days of timely adjustments to the allocation plan, the 8 attributes tended to balance again, and the difference was not much. After thinking about it, Chin Mo decided to add 3 points to hearing and recovery, and 2 points to intelligence and breathing. Warm currents flowed silently in the body, and at the same time, the awakening panel was also changing. The various values Chin Mo sees now are like this. Eyesight, 56. Listening, 47. Intelligence, 50. Breathing, 48. Strength, 60. Speed, 53. Recovery, 48. Defense, 52. Skills, holographic vision, perspective, radar, thermal imaging, deliberate punching, thoughts like springs, tortoise breath, rapid healing, fighting cattle across mountains, supersonic speed, double, steel body 2 level, clear at a glance, supersonic, fast return to consciousness, exhale ice, microscopic vision, elemental immunity, superpower, telescopic vision. Chin Mo has now mastered more and more abilities. Although it looks a bit varied, each of them is indispensable. Superman's all-round invincible hexagonal warrior, it is not an easy task to grow to his level. Of course, Chin Mo's progress has been extremely fast. It took him less than a month to grow from an ordinary person with no strength to a B-level awakened person. It takes years, if not decades, for others to travel that distance. What's more, you can't reach the B-level in your whole life. After all, the upper limit of the gene is there. Of course, Chin Mo has no upper limit, and he still has a lot of room for improvement. After he finished distributing the light energy points, Li Yuan's car just stopped in front of a high-end restaurant. What do you think of this place? You can change it if you don't like it. The two had agreed in advance that Chin Mo would choose the place to eat, so at this time Li Yuan took the initiative to ask for his opinion. Hearing this, Chin Mo glanced at the restaurant through the car window, and saw that although the place looks unattractive, it reveals its class everywhere. Tisk, you are indeed the eldest lady of the Li family in Qingyang. Chin Mo secretly sighed in his heart. Although he has never been to this restaurant, he has heard of it. A casual meal can eat up his month's salary. Very good, let's go here. He was not overly polite with Li Yuan. Li Yuan nodded slightly, and then the two got out of the car and walked towards the restaurant. As for where to park the car, the doorman at the restaurant does a good job of that. After entering, Li Yuan directly chose a corner, picked up the menu and ordered a lot of expensive dishes. They didn't have to wait long before the waiter started serving the food. The two started to move their chopsticks. Li Yuan picked up a piece of beef and put it in his mouth. At the same time he asked casually. Yesterday. How did you go out to play? Chin Mo was stunned for a moment, but didn't react for a while. Didn't you go swimming with Su Yin? Li Yuan said lightly. Oh, this one, I'm very happy. Chin Mo replied casually. It's good. I just performed an important task a few days ago. Everyone's spirits are tense and the pressure is quite high. It's time to go out and relax. Li Yuan nodded. Has the team leader relaxed? It's also important to combine work and rest. Li Yuan raised his head and looked at Chin Mo, with a smile that he didn't know whether it was bitter or self-deprecating. I don't like it, and I don't feel pressured. Cut, Chin Mo hissed secretly in his heart, not believing her nonsense at all. If there is no pressure, can she smoke every day in the small office? Can you hide a basin in the cabinet and soak your feet every day? Judging from the little secrets he has mastered, Li Yuan is probably under the greatest pressure. However, the person who tied the bell must be untied. Chin Mo is not a psychiatrist, he can't solve this kind of thing, he can only rely on Li Yuan to figure out the joints. The atmosphere at the dinner table gradually became silent, and the faint piano music that sounded in the dining room quietly squeezed into the ears of the two of them. After a long time, Li Yuan suddenly spoke again, breaking the silence. If there are dangerous tasks in the future, your own safety is the most important thing, remember to hide first. Hearing this, Qin Mo gave her a slightly surprised look, never thinking that Li Yuan would still care about him. This is very rare on weekdays. In short, Qin Mo has never seen her care about anyone, and she always kept a straight face in the 7th group. The relationship between the two seems to have undergone subtle changes since the last time they suffered together in the Imperial Hospital. It is not just as simple as a subordinate, it seems. It's like having a little friend. In the following dinner, the two chatted casually again, and it didn't end until after 8 o'clock. Li Yuan was going to drive Qin Mo home, but he ruthlessly refused. After all, he also wanted to test the limit of speed by the way. Qin Mo didn't want to go out after returning home. Li Yuan didn't insist to the end either. The two said goodbye at the office tomorrow and waved goodbye. Night, as deep as water. The neon lights on the side of the road flashed an illusory brilliance intertwined with blue and purple. Qin Mo walked to a shadow in the corner, then thought about it, and stepped forward. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strong wind suddenly appeared on the street. 2 seconds later, Qin Mo walked out from the shadow of another corner, smiling all over his face. The distance just now is about 3 miles, which means that my current limit speed is about 800 meters per second. Qin Mo secretly made a calculation in his heart. He is still very satisfied with the current speed. If the distance is shortened to less than 100 meters, then Qin Mo only needs 0.1 s, which is already faster than the blink of an eye. With a rough idea in his heart, Qin Mo hummed a little song and walked slowly towards home. 20 minutes later, he passed by the construction site behind Guanghong Street, and the door of his house was right in front of him. However, Qin Mo's eyes flickered and his brows frowned slightly. His keen body instantly sensed the abnormality, and the air in the nearby streets was filled with extremely weak arcs. This kind of arc will not cause any damage to the human body, just like a sudden encounter with static electricity. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon. Qin Mo immediately opened the holographic vision. And in the next moment, he discovered the reason. In the middle of the night, why is this guy standing around here? Qin Mo muttered. He turned his head to look, and the several walls in front of him quietly turned into illusion, revealing Chu Tianzhao, who was standing on the construction site at this moment. I saw Chu Tianzhao standing straight on the roof of the building like a flagpole, with his arms folded around his chest, without any expression on his face. He is a B-level elemental awakener, and the element he controls happens to be thunder. The electric arc nearby is naturally the ghost he created. As soon as he saw Chu Tianzhao, Qin Mo remembered the last time he took Li Mo to the healthcare department. That scene was really embarrassing. However, Qin Mo's capital is large enough, as well as his unparalleled combat power, both of which completely abused Chu Tianzhao. This guy, he didn't come to seek revenge on me, did he? Qin Mo frowned even tighter. But thinking about it carefully, there is no such possibility. The big healthcare didn't say anything last time. How could it be possible to find a place now? Besides, how can someone come alone to find a place? Isn't this purely looking for abuse? The powerful analysis ability allowed Qin Mo to sort out his messy thoughts in an instant and ruled out many possibilities. He pondered for a while, then his figure flashed and disappeared in place. The moment he disappeared, Chu Tianzhao raised his bushy eyebrows like 2 flying knives. He turned around slowly and stared straight at Qin Mo, who appeared behind him. The terrifying speed is actually much faster than when I first met him. Chu Tianzhao was extremely shocked, but he soon calmed down. After all, it is definitely not an ordinary genius to be regarded as highly regarded by the current patriarch of the Li family in Qingyang, a S-rank awakened person. As the cold wind blew across the roof, Chu Tianzhao took the lead and said, "You're here." Qin Mo. He looked at Chu Tianzhao with a speechless expression on his face, as if the two of them had some agreement. Seeing Qin Mo ignoring him, Chu Tianzhao twitched helplessly, and continued. "I came here mainly for 2 things, one is to resolve the unpleasantness that happened when we first met, and the other." He paused, his face was serious, and he said extremely seriously. "I want to be friends with you." What the hell? Qin Mo was slightly startled, and he was a little confused. If it weren't for his hearing being as high as 47 points now, he almost wondered if he heard it wrong. This guy Chu Tianzhao stayed up most of the night and ran to the roof to eat the cold wind, so he actually wanted to make friends with him. No matter how you hear it, it's unreal. Among the children of the ancient family who have been passed down for thousands of years, which one does not have eyes above the top? Not to mention Chu Tianzhao, even Li Jihei, a descendant of the Li family in Qingyang, who is a descendant of the Pang family, has a superior attitude. Li Chengfeng's small group really wanted to build a relationship with them, and they kept smiling faces all day long, despite being forced to say nothing. In the end, they even fetched water from a bamboo basket in vain, without even getting a hair. Li Jihei's status cannot be compared with Chu Tianzhao's at all. To put it bluntly, he is not worthy of carrying shoes. But now, Chu Tianzhao took the initiative to let go of his posture and wanted to make friends with Qin Mo. What made him willing to do all this was not because of the private relationship between Qin Mo and Li Mo, but simply because of Qin Mo's strength far surpassed him. The strong, no matter where they go, will be respected by others. Let me introduce you formally. My name is Chu Tianzhao, Chu from the Zhenbei Chu clan, the Tianzhao of the current Tianzhao. In fact, when he introduces himself to others, he usually says that he is the arrogant one in, overpowering the heavenly talents of the world, but ahem, saying this in front of Qin Mo is undoubtedly asking for humiliation. Ah, okay, my name is Qin Mo. He had already recovered from the stunt just now. Hearing that his surname was Qin and not Li, Chu Tianzhao's mind suddenly moved, but he didn't think about it. Not all of the 5 great aristocratic families are relatives by blood, and many geniuses were excavated from ordinary people. I was wrong when we met for the first time. I mistakenly thought you were a villain. I'm here to apologize to you. Chu Tianzhao finally let go of his arm, he bowed sharply, bent at 90 degrees, and said meticulously, "Sorry." Seeing this, Qin Mo twitched the corners of his mouth, waved his hands and said, "It's okay, I didn't take it to heart, and I already gave you a punch, so you don't need to care about it." Upon hearing this, Chu Tianzhao inexplicably felt a dull pain somewhere on his forehead. He straightened up and nodded to Qin Mo, and continued, "Since I have made friends with you, I will leave now." When the voice fell to the ground, Chu Tianzhao didn't wait for Qin Mo to speak, his pupils immediately turned dark blue, and the electric arc instantly covered his whole body. He flew down the stairs in a flash, and ran away into the distance. Seeing his shadow going away quickly, Qin Mo asked suspiciously, "This is the Tianzhao of the Chu family in Zhenbei. How do you look at it? A bit silly." The children of the core family he has met so far are Li Mo, Li Yuan and Chu Tianzhao. Obviously, only Li Mo looks normal, and the other two have more or less problems. Needless to say, Li Yuan is in his 20s and still has a rebellious temperament. As for Chu Tianzhao, he came over out of nowhere and told him that he wanted to make friends, and then he ran faster than anyone else. What kind of friendship is this? Qin Mo thought that he could have a supper tonight. Just when these thoughts flashed through his mind, the crackling sound suddenly sounded in his ears again. Qin Mo looked up, only to see a thunderbolt quickly turning back along the original road. 3 seconds later, Chu Tianzhao appeared on the top of the building again, with Lei Ting hidden in his body. He looked at Qin Mo and asked, "Oh, by the way, there will be a banquet held by the young children of the 5 great families in a few days, do you want to go?" Upon hearing this, Qin Mo immediately realized that what Chu Tianzhao was talking about should be the so-called celebration banquet, and he replied casually, "Let's talk about it. All right then, I'll contact you later, let's go first. Come and go in a hurry." After he finished speaking, he turned into a thunderbolt and disappeared on the roof. Qin Mo. He shook his head helplessly, and then he was about to leave here. However, before Qin Mo raised his legs, the thunder came back again. "Well, I forgot to leave your phone number." Chu Tianzhao scratched his head and said with some embarrassment. Qin Mo's old face darkened. "Turn the key and open the door." Qin Mo walked into the house, and there was already an extra phone number in his phone. He did not refuse Chu Tianzhao's request to make friends, and he seemed to have no reason to refuse. As the saying goes, many friends have many paths. What's more, he is still a talented junior from a 1,000-year-old family, who knows when he will be needed for something. However, the reason why Chu Tianzhao is willing to make friends with me is because I have shown my strength. Sure enough, strength is the root of everything. Qin Mo thought of this, and became more determined in his heart. Afterwards, he cleaned the house, washed and lay down on the bed. I read a wave of news about the border every day. After the conflict broke out a few days ago, the situation is still relatively stable. Qi State did not launch a large-scale war just because of the death of an S-level awakened person, and both sides remained rational and calm. Next, Qin Mo took another look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. The high temperature in the imperial capital will continue in the next few days, so he fell asleep contentedly. Nothing to say all night. Dawn the next day, Qin Mo ran to work in the security bureau as usual, never missed the morning sun, and entered the office of the 7th group at a time. On the first day of work after the weekend, I always have no energy, except fishing is fishing, and the time passes quickly. At noon, Qin Mo and Su Yin went to the cafeteria to have lunch together. After the two came back, he suddenly discovered that Li Changfeng and those awakened people were mysteriously gathered together, talking about something. Qin Mo was curious, and quietly let go of his hearing. Hey, don't tell me, I think there is an 80% chance that this news is true. It shouldn't be. Who is the director? He is an S-level awakened person, and he is also the head of the Li family in Qingyang. How could he go to such a place? Wang Yan objected. That kind of place, what kind? Qin Mo became more and more curious in his heart. After all, this is the S-rank director of the security bureau who is always in a hurry. He has been working here for so long, and he hasn't seen what the director looks like yet. I just heard the colleague continue to say, this is not sure. What happened to the S-level awakened person? What happened to the patriarch of the Li family in Qingyang? After all, the director is a man will have needs in that respect. What's so strange about meeting everything? Quote. Hiss. Qin Mo pricked up his ears. He seemed to have heard a super big gossip. Hey, you said the clubhouse where the director goes, what a high-end place it must be. Another colleague asked curiously, with envy on his face. Then who knows? Anyway, it is definitely not something we can afford. Bah, men don't have a good thing. Wang Yan spat with a red face. As soon as she finished speaking, the sound of high heels stepping on the ground rang in her ears. Li Yuan looked at the few people and asked with a frown. What are you guys doing here? Seeing this, everyone quickly argued. No, it's nothing. What, are you done with your work? Li Yuan's face was cold. Go here, go here. Li Changfeng and the others quickly dispersed and returned to their workstations, all silent. Feel free to talk about the bureau chief, but don't let Li Yuan know that she is from the Li family in Qingyang. Ever since, throughout the afternoon, the office of Group 7 was very quiet. Looking at the silence of the crowd, Qin Mo couldn't help shaking his head with a bit of emotion. It turns out that the director also likes big health care. He thought so in his heart. Although Qin Mo didn't know whether the gossip was true or not, it didn't stop him from taking it as a joke. Seeing that the sky was getting late and he was about to get off work, Qin Mo suddenly had a thought. He took out his mobile phone and sent a text message to Li Mo, intending to ask him to go to the big health care at night. Unexpectedly, Li Mo refused at the speed of light, and replied that there were some things in his family. Qin Mo felt that it was a pity, but he had no choice but to make an appointment next time. He was alone, and he was too lazy to go to those places. In this way, time passed quickly, and when it was around 5 o'clock, a familiar warm current appeared in his body. Energy points. 17, freely assignable. Today's light energy points have just been accumulated. Qin Mo focused his eyes and opened the Gene Awakening panel. He still followed the old way, first assigning 2 points to each of vision, strength, speed and defense. Defense. 54, skill Man of Steel 2, elemental immune enhancement. The defense has once again been strengthened. The warm current quickly flowed to every corner of Qin Mo's body, further strengthening his bones, internal organs, tendons and so on in all directions. If you want to grow into a real man of steel like Superman, you must cultivate both internally and externally. A lot of damage will cause an effect similar to beating cattle across mountains, transmitting power to the inside of the human body. As we all know, internal organs are the most vulnerable parts, and this time the focus of strengthening is on the strengthening of the body. Soon, the warm current dissipated, and Chinmo's steel body was upgraded to Tier 3, able to withstand the impact of stronger forces and offset more and more terrifying damage. As for the other skill element immunity, the same is true. When Chinmo met Chu Tianzhao for the first time, the two fought briefly. Although the thunder couldn't hurt Chinmo at that time, he would feel a slight itching and his body could feel it. It is different now. If it happens again, Chinmo will not feel anything, completely immune to his thunder. Of course, this is not once and for all, and there are limitations. If the power of the element is greater, for example, if it is done by an S-level awakened person, then Chinmo will still be the same as before. This needs to wait for him to continue to accumulate light energy points in the future to increase the defense attribute to a higher level. The basic attribute value is the foundation of strength. Feeling the changes in his body, Chinmo showed a smile between his brows and eyes. Now, there are still 9 light energy points left. After deliberating for a while, he allocated 3 points to hearing, intelligence, and breathing respectively, and put aside the recovery attribute for now, waiting for the light energy points accumulated tomorrow. Hearing. 50, awakening skill, super listening. Accompanied by the surge of warmth, a message silently appeared in Chinmo's mind. After this period of time, the distribution of the 4 weak attributes has been improved, and the hearing has reached the threshold again unknowingly, and a new skill has been awakened. Super hearing, as the name suggests, the range of hearing will be greatly improved compared to before, which is the same as the increase in super strength. I don't know how far the limit range can cover this hearing awakening. Chinmo thought to himself, and at the same time, with a thought, he let go of his hearing in an instant without reservation, and all the sounds within a radius of 10 miles rushed into his mind first through the ultrasound. Immediately afterwards, it was like a stone fell into a lake, causing ripples and circles. With his location as the center, the coverage area keeps increasing, 15 miles, 20 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles. Every time the range of 10 miles is expanded, the number of voices Chinmo hears will increase exponentially. Such a huge noisy voice almost drowned him, but fortunately, his current intelligence has reached 53 points, and his ability to analyze, calculate, and process is much stronger than before. But even so, after covering more than 50 miles, Chinmo decisively used Siruquan to further improve the computing power of his brain. The farther he can hear, the harder it will be for him to process the information. When the coverage area is a full 100 miles, the things that need to be analyzed have exceeded Chinmo's calculation limit. He only lasted for a second before he was forced to put his hearing away. Excessive use of the brain, a deep sense of exhaustion hit like a tide, and the sequelae of thinking like a spring appeared. But soon, a warm current enveloped his brain, quickly restoring Chinmo's mental strength. He leaned on the office chair, closed his eyes slightly, and rubbed the space between his brows with his fingers. My current limit is about 100 miles away. This is almost covering most of the imperial capital. This improvement is really not small. Chinmo was slightly startled, but he twitched his lips helplessly. It seems that tomorrow we need to allocate more light energy points to the intelligence, otherwise, although we can hear it, we can't process it. This is not acceptable. The importance of high intelligence is undoubtedly revealed at this moment, so it goes without saying. In less than 5 minutes, Chinmo recovered his exhausted spirit and became full of vitality again. It was already the end of the meeting, and the colleagues in the 7 groups left one after another. After tidying up the table, Chinmo also got up and walked out of the building of the security bureau, walking towards home. At the same time, he let go of his hearing again. Just now he tested the limit range of hearing, and now he wants to try to find out how far the limit range of the brain can handle without urging thoughts to flow. The hearing expanded to 50 miles in an instant, and then gradually narrowed the circle, and it stopped at about 45 miles. At this time, Chinmo's brain was running at high speed. He could hear all the sounds within 45 miles very clearly, and he could distinguish the source and location of the sound in an instant. The reaction speed of his brain was very fast. Chinmo doesn't feel strenuous in this range, it's just right, and he can maintain this state for a long time. In this way, he has almost mastered the ability of super hearing. Chin Mo immediately prepared to turn off the long-distance hearing. But at this moment, a familiar voice suddenly caught his attention. Chin Mo frowned slightly, thoughts flashed through his mind, and voices from other directions were temporarily blocked by him. He heard this familiar voice more and more clearly, and quickly recalled the relevant information of this voice from his memory. You know, Chin Mo has long been able to achieve his photographic memory, and his current memory will only become more terrifying. This is a man's voice. The last time he heard it, the man was discussing with other members of the Tiandaway about the crystallization of elements. It is absolutely impossible for Chin Mo to remember wrongly, so it is obvious that this is a member of the Tiandaway, and his status is not low. His brows were furrowed even tighter, his hearing was pushed to the extreme, and he heard all the subtle and chaotic sounds around the man. The faucet is dripping water rhythmically, a boring TV series is playing on the TV, and the floor the shoes are stepping on is made of solid wood. Countless voices came into Chin Mo's mind from 45 miles away, gradually building a three-dimensional space view. The person's movements and position are clearly visible. He is alone, and he is moving in a small area, like the living room of a house, so, this should be a residential building. Chin Mo frowned and said to himself, he seemed to have accidentally discovered the hiding place of someone from the Tiandaway in the imperial capital. I didn't expect there would be a surprise. Should I tell the security bureau? Chin Mo thought to himself. Tiandi will bring considerable trouble to the security bureau, and several people in the bureau have died under their hands, which is quite a big enmity. Once there are clues about the Tiandaway, the security bureau will definitely pounce on it like a mad dog, and the bureau will never let this opportunity go. Thinking of this, Chin Mo suddenly fell silent. The leader of the third group of the security department was seriously injured, many people died in the fifth group, several families lost their pillars, and fell into a long period of grief. Why? Chin Mo sighed heavily, obviously he had already made his choice. He decided to inform the security bureau of this unexpected discovery. Of course, what kind of method to use to inform, this still needs careful consideration. I definitely can't rush up by myself. It's too stupid. The insiders in the bureau haven't been cleaned up yet. God knows who they are. They can't be exposed blindly. Chin Mo shook his head and ruled out this option. After pondering for a while, he decided to use the anonymous method. However, in order to completely avoid the inner ghost, Chin Mo needs to directly pass the news to someone who is absolutely impossible to be the inner ghost. There are two such candidates ready-made, one is Li Yuan and the other is Li Mo. Chin Mo knew the true identities of the two of them, and a plan gradually appeared in his heart. 5 minutes later, Chin Mo suddenly turned into a small internet cafe by the side of the road. Qingyong Li family, the study of the manor. Li Mo's complexion is very ugly now, with a faint hint of livid. He is looking at the endgame of Go in front of him, and his mind is very confused. Playing chess is his favorite thing to do on weekdays, but he is not in the slightest mood at all. Boom. There was a knock on the door. Secretary Li stood at the door, bowed slightly, and said softly, Patriarch, Madam asked me to send you a message. Speak, Madam said. Secretary Li raised his head and glanced at him, then slowly said, Madam said that she allows you to take another concubine, as long as you don't go out and mess around. Hee. Li Mo twitched the corners of his mouth, his face twitched, and several black threads crept up his forehead quietly. He knew that this was just an angry remark, deliberately trying to run him down. However, Li Mo couldn't do anything, he couldn't even talk back. Who made him feel wrong about this matter? His current mood can no longer be described in simple words, as if he ate a fly. Li Mo squinted his eyes, and said slowly, that kid from the Chu family named Tianzhao, where is he now? Hearing this, Secretary Li immediately nodded and said, I'll investigate right away. Although he didn't know that Li Mo wanted to pay attention to a younger generation because of Mao, it's better not to ask so many questions at this time. When the voice fell, Secretary Li was about to turn around and leave. But what I didn't expect was that there was a sudden sound of hurried footsteps, and Li Mo strode towards here with a hurried expression. He took 3 steps in parallel, passed Secretary Li, stood in front of Li Mo, and said very seriously, Father, someone just hacked into the network system of the Security Bureau. Hearing this, Li Mo frowned, and gave Li Mo a faint look. His already bad mood became worse. You, the chief of the security department, do you need such a small matter now? He said impatiently. However, before he could finish the second half of his sentence, Limo said again, that person left a message about the Tiandaway. As soon as these words came out, the study immediately fell into silence. Secretary Lee froze. After a brief silence, Limo looked solemn and said in a deep voice, "Tell me in detail." Hearing this, Limo quickly told all the drafts that he had already typed in his belly when he came here. 5 minutes ago, my mobile phone suddenly went abnormal. Someone broke through the firewall built by the Security Bureau and sent me a message through the internal network. The content of the message is, "This place is the hiding place of the Tiandaway. Quickly mobilize reliable personnel to make operational arrangements, and don't startle the snake." A coordinate is attached at the back, which is a secluded residential building at the junction of Lingyun District and Tianyan District. The floors and house numbers are very detailed. Quote, Limo took out his mobile phone, opened the message interface and handed it to Limo. While Limo was concentrating on checking it, he continued, "I just finished watching it, but I didn't respond when my little sister called me. She also received this message. The content is exactly the same. Has anyone else received it?" Limo asked with a frown. "I had already checked on the way here, and the intelligence department, technology department and other departments didn't know about this news." Limo nodded. "It's not exposed, is it?" "Never exposed." After the words fell to the ground, the study fell into silence again, and Limo's brows furrowed even tighter, as he pondered in his heart. Now, the first question before us is whether the news is true or false. Is it possible that this is a trap deliberately set by Tiandaway in order to lure snakes out of their holes? This is not the first time something like this has happened. This was the case last time in the intelligence department. The inner ghost delivered false news, which resulted in the sacrifice of many people in the 5 groups, causing heavy casualties. What if it's a fake this time? Limo took this into consideration, so he came to Limo urgently to discuss. After a few breaths, Limo suddenly said, "This person has left the internal network of the Security Bureau, and only sent news to you and Xiaoyuan. Obviously, he has scruples, so the scruples should be the inner ghost who has not been found out yet." Quote. As soon as these words came out, Limo's expression changed, and he suddenly realized, Father's words are true. It seems that this news has a great possibility to be true. Limo nodded slowly, and he thought so too, otherwise the other party wouldn't need to make such a big detour. But at this time, someone put forward a different opinion. At this moment, Secretary Lee's expression was normal. He suddenly interrupted and said, "Patriarch, young master, we still need to be cautious about this matter. What if the other party has already thought of this level? Recently, we have continuously dug out inner ghosts. People who want to come to Tiandaway have already known it, and it is not so easy to confuse the public. At this time, I think they are very likely to make another round of detours, just to take advantage of our psychology. I also hope that the Patriarch can consider it carefully." Quote. Secretary Lee's guess is also possible. Limo frowned thoughtfully. Whether it's true or false, he can't tell the difference now. But what if it's fake? A faint dragon prestige suddenly rose in the study. There is no need to say any more. Limo stood up and glanced over the two of them, his face extremely majestic. "Mobilize reliable people from the clan and act quickly. If it is really a trap by the Tiandaway, then let them take a good look at what a 1,000-year-old family is. Our Qingyang Li family has been dormant in recent years, and now it seems that it has been dormant for too long. It has been so long that the world has forgotten how much respect and reverence we should have for this ancient surname." Quote. At this moment, Limo really showed his fangs. A powerful S-class awakener is more than just a harmless appearance sitting at a roadside barbecue stand. In a few words, there is infinite self-confidence. What is a millennium family? Standing for 1,000 years without falling down, and prospering to this day, is a family of 1,000 years. Yes, without hesitation, Limo straightened his back and shouted in a deep voice. Afterwards, he quickly left the study and began to arrange for tonight's emergency operations. Seeing his back as he went away, Secretary Lee, who was standing at the door, bowed slightly towards Limo, then turned and left as well. Usually at times like this, he, the secretary, has to be on the sidelines to assist. Naturally, Today is no exception, it's just. He needs to make a phone call first. Secretary Li quickly walked out of Li's manor and castle. He took out his mobile phone and quickly dialed a secret number. The inspection is coming soon, it's time to go fishing in another place. After connecting, he only said such a short sentence, and then hung up neatly, as if nothing happened just now. Secretary Li looked normal, but at this moment his heart had already set off a turbulent sea. When Li Mo said the approximate address, he immediately knew the authenticity of the news. There is indeed an important member of the Tiandaway hiding there. But the question is, how did he expose it? What is the identity of the person who delivered the message? How much does he really know? Secretary Li didn't know anything, he only knew that the other party was very difficult to deal with. Otherwise, the other party would not intentionally only send messages to Li Mo and Li Yuan, which directly bypassed him, causing him to be totally defenseless. He happened to be in the study tonight, what if he wasn't there? Thinking of this, Secretary Li's expression turned dark. Li Mo's actions were very fast. It only took him 5 minutes to assemble his staff and head towards the destination secretly. As for Li Mo, he never left the study from the beginning to the end. Looking at the mess in front of him, Li Mo picked up a sunspot, thought for a while, and then dropped it. Who is this man? While placing the ball, he murmured in a low voice, also guessing the other party's identity. The Heaven and Earth Association is not a simple force, and there must be other people behind it to support it, so it can be hidden so deeply in the imperial capital, and it is extremely difficult to dig out. Since the other party can find the trace of Tiandaway, it shows that he is not weak. Quote. Click. A crisp sound rang in my ears, and another sunspot fell on the chessboard. The royal family and other aristocratic families are all waiting and watching. They hope that the world will make the Li family full of holes, and the possibility of the aristocratic family can be ruled out. Li Mo frowned, puzzled and said, who could it be? Although Tiandaway has made many moves, there are only a few forces that know about it. Could it be? His face changed suddenly, and his pupils flickered. According to the elimination method to remove the suspects one by one, a familiar name suddenly appeared in his heart. Qin Mo. Qin Mo knew about the Heaven and Earth Society, and he saved the members of the Li family twice. The most important thing is that time in front of the barbecue stand, he showed terrifying speed and powerful detection ability. If it's this kid, then everything will make sense. It was as if a knot that had been entangled several times had been found, and the context of the matter instantly became extremely clear, presenting itself in Li Mo's mind. Qin Mo perfectly fits all the elements, the only question is, why was he able to break into the Security Bureau's firewall? You know, the technical department of the Security Bureau is also among the best in the imperial capital. However, thinking of Qin Mo's terrifying strength in Go and what he said, Li Mo suddenly understood. These things, you can read the book. When Qin Mo said this to him at the time, Li Mo only thought he was bragging, but now it seems, the clown turned out to be himself. Thinking of this, Li Mo let out a long sigh, his face was shocked, and he couldn't help muttering in a low voice. This kid, what kind of little monster is he? How can he know everything? He subconsciously compared Qin Mo with himself when he was young, but the next moment Li Mo showed a look of resentment. The two were completely incomparable, and Qin Mo was crushing him in every direction. Whether it's the talent of Gene Awakening, or the game of Go that he is proud of, not to mention that Qin Mo now has a title of hacker genius on his head. Sigh, such a talented young man, why is he neither in my Li family nor in my security bureau? Li Mo shook his head, his face full of emotion and deep regret. Jingle bell. Just at this moment, the phone rang suddenly. Li Mo glanced at it, then connected the phone, and Li Mo's voice came from the opposite side. Father, come a step late and let him run away, but judging from the traces left at the scene, the news is true and there is nothing wrong with it. Well, write down all the people who participated in the operation tonight, and you will do it yourself. Yes. After hanging up the phone, Li Mo looked normal. It seemed that the members of the Tiandaway ran away, which did not surprise him at all. For tonight, he didn't lose anything, and he was invincible from the beginning. If it is false, it will be a good time to show Qingyang Li's arms to the imperial capital. And if true, important members of the Tiandaway can be captured. But if the news is true, but no one catches it, Hey, just take this opportunity to clean up the ghosts hiding in Lee's house. The corners of Lee Mo's mouth could not help but slowly curl up, revealing a faint smile. Chin Mo, you really gave me a big gift tonight. After the murmur fell, he immediately dialed Chin Mo's phone, only to hear 2 beeps, and the phone was connected. Hey, brother, why do you call me when you have time? Are you done with your family affairs? Hearing this, the smile on the corner of Lee Mo's mouth froze instantly. It's over, Lee Mo said with a dark face. Hearing this, Chin Mo changed into a comfortable position and nestled on the sofa, and replied, it's fine when it's done. He picked up his phone and glanced at the time, and then continued to ask, I don't think it's too late, brother, are you still going to the big health care? It's just time to relax after busy work. Lee Mo. He fell into silence, the feeling of being rubbed salt in the wound was too uncomfortable. But at the same time, he wanted to know more and more where that little Chu Tianjiao was now. Hello, brother, why are you silent? Is the signal bad? Chin Mo was suspicious. Hearing this, Lee Mo just coughed lightly, and said slowly, I won't go tonight, where are you now? I'm at home by myself. Come out for a late night snack. Lee Mo invited. Okay, is that still the old place? After the agreement was made, Chin Mo hung up the phone, sat up from the sofa, and stretched. It's only past 9 o'clock in the evening, and it takes at most an hour or 2 to eat a meal. When he comes back at 11 or 12 o'clock, he just goes to bed, and it doesn't affect his biological clock. Putting on his shoes and taking the keys, Chin Mo walked out of the house and trotted away. He made an appointment with Lee Mo to meet in half an hour, so he was not in a hurry and could take his time. Soon, the neon lights on the side of the road were far behind him, and the intoxicating smell of fireworks rushed over. At the same roadside stall, Lee Mo arrived 1 step ahead of him and had already ordered food. Boss, serve another 10 garlic oysters. Okay. Chin Mo yelled, pulled out the chair, and sat across from him. I kept my brother waiting for a long time. Lee Mo shook his head slightly, and said, I haven't been here for long. Seeing this, Chin Mo picked up the beer and filled it for him, and at the same time asked with a smile, it's late at night, don't you need to stay at home with your sister-in-law? Lee Mo. This was the second sentence the two had just met, and unexpectedly brought up his sadness again. How do you say, are you really not going to the big health care tonight? Chin Mo continued to ask. Lee Mo. Only eat tonight, nothing else. He twitched the corner of his mouth. Okay, let's go tomorrow. Brother Oysters, you should eat more tonight. Middle-aged people really should make up for it. Chin Mo seemed to have something to say. Obviously, Lee Mo's successive refusals made him subconsciously radiate his thoughts in that direction. Upon hearing his words, Lee Mo understood what he meant. He squeezed his fists, and said with a dark face, let's keep this for yourself, I don't need it. Hey, it's okay, boss, let's add another 5 kidneys. Chin Mo yelled again. Then, he lowered his body, moved closer to Lee Mo, and said mysteriously, I have a very good colleague. She seems to know an expert in this field. How about I ask tomorrow? Creak creak. Lee Mo clenched his fists and squeezed out a swear word from between his teeth. You can't do it. You can't say no to anything, especially about that. Even if Lee Mo is an S-level awakened person, he is not exempt. This is the nature of men, regardless of age. Ahem, bro, don't worry, I didn't say anything. Chin Mo rubbed his nose and smiled coyly. Seeing his appearance, Lee Mo became angry and couldn't help snorting coldly. If it was someone else who dared to arrange him like this, he would have known why the flowers were so popular. But Chin Mo's words are different. On the one hand, Chin Mo has the same temperament as him, and the two can be regarded as friends who have forgotten their age. On the other hand, an overly outstanding genius will always get some preferential treatment. For example, higher tolerance. As the oysters were brought to the table, this slightly embarrassing topic was naturally turned away by Lee Mo. He suddenly let out a long sigh, frowned slightly, and made a worried look. Why, what's wrong, brother? Is there anything bothering you? Chin Mo asked. Lee Mo shook his head, waved his hands and said, it's nothing, but the company's situation is not very good recently, there are loopholes in the network system, and there is something wrong with the firewall. Oh, what exactly is the problem? Brother, why don't you tell me in detail? Chin Mo asked without thinking too much. Is it possible that you still understand this? Li Mo said calmly. I understand a little, Chin Mo said with a smile. I can still deal with most of the problems at once. Hee, it really is you, kid. Li Mo sneered from the bottom of his heart. He just tried a little bit, but he didn't expect that this guy would reveal his true colors immediately. Everything before was just his speculation, but now he is 90% sure that the person who hacked into the network of the Security Bureau tonight. It's Chin Mo. If the subordinates still can't solve it after a while, then I'll come to you for help again. Li Mo casually said haha. That's fine. It depends on what you mean, brother. Anyway, I have nothing to do with work here. I'm pretty rich most of the time. Nothing wrong, so let's just stare at the world, right? Li Mo thought to himself like this, but he didn't show it on his face, he just said with emotion. Nowadays there are not many talented young people like you, so you really don't want to be my son-in-law. Don't, I treat my brother as a bosom friend, and my brother doesn't bring such tricks. Chin Mo quickly waved his hand and refused. You kid, are you looking for a beating? Li Mo raised his eyebrows. HMPH, my daughter's appearance can be ranked high in the entire imperial capital. If you see her, I'm afraid you'll even regret it. Hearing this, Chin Mo didn't care at all. He smiled slightly and said indifferently. Finding a daughter-in-law, you can't just look at your appearance, besides. Am I that much of a womanizer? As soon as these words came out, Li Mo's arm holding the wine glass suddenly stiffened. He raised his head and looked at Chin Mo in shock, his face full of astonishment. Aren't you, Chin Mo? This time, it was his turn to have black lines all over his forehead. Afterwards, the two chatted like this and had a pleasant meal. At about 11:30, Chin Mo just returned home. He went to the bathroom to wash up before climbing into bed. In this way, there was nothing to say all night. The next day, at 4:30 in the afternoon, the warm sunlight passed through the glass and fell on Chin Mo's body. He leaned back on the chair, picked up the thermos cup and slowly took a sip of hot water. Through the small office, one can clearly see Li Yuan standing by the window, puffing out a cloud. This is already the 11th cigarette she has smoked today. Her face today is more indifferent than before, and her slightly frowned eyebrows are indicative of her mood, as if something is bothering her. Chin Mo put down the thermos, and looked back by the way, his eyes flickered, thoughtful. From going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning until now, he has not heard any news about last night's actions at all, which is very unreasonable. Chin Mo didn't keep an eye on last night. She passed the news to Li Yuan's brother and sister. After seeing Li Yuan rushing towards the destination, she went home to rest. As such, he does not know the exact details of the follow-up actions. However, judging from Li Yuan's current appearance, it is obvious that the Security Bureau, or the Qingyang Li family has not made any achievements. Obviously made an action, but the person didn't catch it, which is interesting. Chin Mo kept thinking in his heart. He can ensure that the problem will not lie with Li Yuan and Li Mo, it must be with other people. The people above know that there is an insider, so they must choose reliable personnel for the operation. There was no team at the security office to go out to carry out the mission last night. It was obvious that the Qingyang Li family's power was used, but in the end, the person still ran away. Has the Tiandawei planted the spies so deeply? Chin Mo frowned slightly, he was very surprised. The more you dig into this organization, the more terrifying it becomes. At the beginning, who would have thought that the world would be such a behemoth hidden in the dark? It actually brought so much damage and trouble to the Security Bureau. It's a good thing I didn't report it myself. The majestic family with 1,000 years of history turned into a sieve, leaking everywhere. Chin Mo shook his head, feeling emotional in his heart, but he quickly put his thoughts behind him and didn't think much about it. In fact, he is not interested in the struggle of upper-class forces like the aristocratic family, as long as it doesn't affect his life, that's fine. Then, not long after, it was time to get off work. Warm currents are flowing in the body, and today's light energy points have been accumulated again. Energy points, 19, freely assignable. Chin Mo put his hands behind his head, looked at the Gene Awakening panel, and added 2 points to vision, strength, speed, and defense as usual. For the remaining 11 points, he directly took out 5 points and threw them to intelligence, which was decided yesterday, and the remaining 6 points were divided equally between hearing, breathing and recovery. As the light energy point returns to 0, the warm current quickly spreads to the whole body, and the head is the key part. Intelligence. 58, Awakening Skill, Super Brain. Chapter 51. Call. Chin Mo heaved a sigh of relief, with a bright smile on his face. The new skill was awakened again, and it was not in vain that he allocated more light energy points to intelligence today. The warm current wrapped around the brain, penetrated into the brain, stimulated his brain nerves in some unknown way, and enhanced his intelligence. The improvement of intelligence means that the brain's analysis, processing, calculation, and deduction capabilities will be greatly increased. And the magnitude of this increase, because of the awakening of the super brain, is far beyond the past. At the same time, the ability to think like a fountain and understand at a glance has also been further enhanced, which can be regarded as a joint reaction. For ordinary people, the development of the brain is actually very limited. Because of the all-round basic strengthening brought about by genes, the awakened person's brain will be stronger than that of ordinary people, but only a little bit stronger. The awakened ones of the spiritual department should be really powerful in this respect, but there is too little information about them, and Chin Mo can only guess, without knowing the specific real situation. This time, the warm current lasted longer than usual. Chin Mo expressed his understanding. After all, the brain is the most mysterious place in the human body. After about 2 minutes, the warm current slowly subsided. Now Chin Mo feels his head is cool, his thinking is unprecedentedly clear, and various ideas spring up like mushrooms after rain. It was as if a brush had just been inserted into his brain, sweeping away years of dust. After cleaning, lubricating oil was poured on it to make the brain run like a fly. I don't know which one is faster between me and a computer. Chin Mo thought curiously. However, there is no doubt that as long as he continues to distribute light energy points intellectually, he will eventually surpass the most powerful computer in the world. Only in this way can it be called super brain. Pulling out the chair, Chin Mo got up and walked out of the building. He is off work now. Today he found a small restaurant on the side of the road and went home after dinner. After arriving home, Chin Mo sat down on the sofa, and then let go of all his hearing. A few seconds later, he had covered a radius of 100 miles. This time, it was completely different from yesterday. Faced with an extremely large number of noisy voices that could even be called terrifying, Chin Mo did not feel any discomfort. All the sound information transmitted to his ears is analyzed, processed, and classified by his super brain at an unimaginable speed. Such a change is very clear, and the improvement is obvious. Chin Mo closed his eyes, the corners of his mouth slowly turned up, and he was in a very good mood. The faster the brain works, the faster his reaction ability will be, which includes not only his thoughts, but also his physical instincts. In short, if there is a fight, Chin Mo will counterattack at a faster speed. When I was still very low in intelligence, I couldn't see any effect. I didn't expect that after gradually adding points to become stronger, it was far beyond my expectations. The effect is so remarkable. Quantitative change leads to qualitative change, it is really scary. Chin Mo thought to himself. Slap. He snapped his fingers, and all the chaotic sounds in his mind disappeared instantly, leaving only people's footsteps, heartbeat, breathing, and talking. Slap. Chin Mo snapped his fingers again, and all other voices disappeared, leaving only the voice of speech. Now, what he heard was more concise and clearer. Chin Mo recalled in detail the first time he eavesdropped on the secrets of the Tiandaway, recorded the 3 voices that had spoken at that time, and began to search in his mind. He may not be able to find something, because he did not cover the entire imperial capital. Therefore, Chin Mo just had the idea of giving it a try. The analysis and capture made by the super brain was very fast. After 3 seconds, his expression changed and his ears moved quietly. Chin Mo was the first to hear a familiar female voice. Lingyun District, a chessboard gym. I still maintain my previous opinion. The exposure this time was just accidental. Chen Lingling crossed her legs and pushed the mahjong in her hand. Sitting opposite him, a very ordinary-looking middle-aged man stacked the cards in his hand and said without raising his head. There can't be so many coincidences in the world. The so-called chance is just an inevitable result of foretelling. What is certain now is that besides the Qingyang Li family, there is another force that has already targeted us. Chen Lingling frowned, thought carefully in her heart, and said slowly, it stands to reason that this should not be the work of several other aristocratic families. But other than the aristocratic family, I can't think of anyone else with such a powerful intelligence system. Quote, that's exactly what I was wondering about. The middle-aged man smiled slightly and said, Number 9, it's your turn to draw the cards. Number 9. Qin Mo keenly grasped this key word. Is this the internal code name of the Tiandawei? Thinking like this, he stopped his listening and focused all his attention on this chess and card hall that was 83 miles away from him. Chen Lingling picked up a piece of 9 strips casually, her brows still frowning. What about No. 3, has there been no news from him? Hearing this, the middle-aged man shook his head, and replied, Number 3 will need to lie dormant for a while recently, and the actions last night have hidden dangers of exposure. But since he didn't send any news outside, it means that he didn't find anything. Quote, do you need to let the people below go into hibernation temporarily? Chen Lingling asked. No, the more we get to this point, the more opportunities we have. The middle-aged man said flatly. At this time, another person at the card table suddenly smiled, and he said, Number 4 and Number 5 have already set off, and they will enter the imperial capital in a few days. Hiss. The news was too shocking. Chen Lingling couldn't help but gasp. She said in shock, these two are here, could it be that the organization is still planning to? Yes, this is the simplest and most effective method. The middle-aged man casually slapped a dongfang, smiled and said, an ancient family that can last for 1,000 years, their strength should not be underestimated, they are extremely huge, but it is very easy to let such a family fall apart. As long as there is a vacancy in their new generation of heirs, this huge and complicated family will inevitably experience unprecedented chaos due to power struggles. Not to mention, the main line of the Li family in Qingyang is not strong, and the most talented younger generation of the family is actually the madman Li from the Pond family. The main weak side is strong, so what if there is an S rank? Unless he is determined to kill Crazy Li, the deadliest seed of power will inevitably take root in people's hearts. At that time, the other aristocratic families will be more than happy to push for the leader. The decline and ruin of the Qingyang Li family is inevitable. Quote. The voice fell, and the room was silent. Chen Lingling's throat rolled, her expression became more and more shocked. Thinking about what the middle-aged man said in her heart, she didn't speak for a long time. How terrifying is this grasp of human nature and analysis of the situation? Snapped. The crisp sound of mahjong falling on the table suddenly sounded, awakening Chen Lingling instantly. She looked up in astonishment, and saw a red card lying quietly beside the middle-aged man's hand. He slowly pushed down the card wall, revealed the card face, and said with a smile. Sorry, I'm fooling around, I'm 13. Crazy Li, that idiot Chu Tianzhao should know him. Qin Mo opened his eyes and muttered, frowning. I have to admit that the analysis of the middle-aged man is very reasonable. The problem of family inheritance is basically unsolvable, and there is no way to avoid it. Number 3 should be the inner ghost hiding in the Li family in Qingyang, so what are the identities of Number 4 and No. 5? Qin Mo was puzzled. Although he has eavesdropped on some information, there are still many things he does not know. However, what Qin Mo can confirm now is that Li Mo and Li Yuan are still the next targets of Tiandawei. They have launched multiple attacks against the two men, but each time they have returned without success, never really achieving their goals. 2 B ranks were dispatched last time, so judging from this, the 4th and 5th are very likely to be 2 A rank awakeners. Otherwise, the strength is not enough to see, and they can only deliver food when they come. Quote. Hiss. Qin Mo's eyes flickered, his expression shocked. It even has an A level. What is the origin of this world? It's really a big deal. A level awakened, one person can destroy a city. Gene awakening to this point can be said to have reached the limit of the ground. They can easily kill B levels in seconds, and they can display terrifying power with every gesture. Even the Holy Spirit relics and elemental crystals precipitated after the fall are very powerful weapons. One step further, that is to go from the ground to the sky, cross the gap between heaven and earth, and achieve an S rank that is unmatched by 1 in a billion. Whether in Dakin or Daki, A-level awakened people are the absolute backbone. They have quite high salaries, hold important positions everywhere, and their status is extremely respected. That's why Chinmo would say that heaven and earth will be generous. They can even call A-level, "This is not an ordinary force, I'm afraid it's not." Chinmo was even more shocked in his heart. You must know that most of the resources in this society are actually in the hands of the upper-level forces, especially the rare but powerful resources of high-level awakened people. Therefore, the people behind Tiandaway are either from aristocratic families, the royal family, or the state of Qi. Good guy, that's how it looks like going around in circles. Chinmo murmured in a low voice. He is different from Li Mo. What he knows and sees is far inferior to Li Mo, so Chinmo didn't guess the truth until he found out that Tiandaway can call A-level. However, he didn't know who the mastermind behind the scenes was, the scope was too wide. I will enter the imperial capital in a few days. When will this day be? And if you want to do it, you need to choose a suitable place. Chinmo thought in his heart, and many thoughts flashed through his mind for a moment, but he rejected them one by one. The collected information is still too little, and there are too many possibilities. Even if the exhaustive method is used, it is difficult to deduce it. Chinmo shook his head. He wanted to eavesdrop on more news, but Tiandaway didn't give him this chance. Even if they gathered together, many of the things they said were vague, and the key points were not mentioned at all. I'm still in the mood to play mahjong. Chinmo murmured in a low voice that he actually wanted to inform the Security Bureau of Tiandaway anonymously again, but after thinking about it, he himself denied this idea. I still don't know what role number 3 will play in the Qingyang Li family. Even if he takes action, it is very likely that he will be exposed. If this is the case, the Tiandaway will probably be on guard. If they change the original plan, it will be even more troublesome. Quote. Chinmo thought so in his heart. For him now, the world will be in the light, but he is in the dark. Anyway, it may not be useful for the Li family to make a move. It is better to keep the status quo, at least he himself has prepared in advance. Thinking this way in his heart, Chinmo got up from the sofa at the same time and walked towards the bedroom. Although he had eavesdropped on the plan in advance, Chinmo had no idea when, where, or how the 2A levels from the Tiandaway would attack. He can only be vigilant these few days and pay more attention to abnormal situations. In addition, Chinmo was going to notify Li Mo and Li Yuan of tonight's events, giving them a warning in advance. Of course, this would include number 3 whom he eavesdropped on. Presumably, these two people would not know that there was a high-status insider, and they would be so stupid as to expose themselves. Although the 2A level awakeners are powerful, they can still be easily handled by Qingyang Li. Chinmo lay on the bed, looked at the ceiling through the darkness, and said with emotion. Sure enough, this is a 1,000-year-old family. No words all night. The next morning, Chinmo got up on time at 6 o'clock, brushed his teeth, took a shower, had breakfast, and left the house at 6:30. As usual, he trotted all the way to work in the security bureau facing the beautiful morning sun. However, today is a little different. At 7 o'clock, Chinmo quietly turned into a small internet cafe by the side of the road. 10 minutes later, he just came out and continued towards the security bureau. I saw him look normal, as if nothing happened just now. Li family in Qingyang, the manor castle. In the study, there are only Li Mo and his son. Li Mo frowned slightly. He was lowering his head, carefully checking the message on Li Mo's phone. After a long time, he just put down his phone, looked up at Li Mo, and asked slowly, "What do you think about this?" Hearing this, Li Mo's back straightened 3 points immediately, and his expression became serious. He knew that this was a small test for him by his father. Li Mo didn't answer right away, but after thinking about it carefully, he murmured. Although it's unbelievable that there is an A level in the Tiandaway, I think this news is credible. Thanks to your father's arrangement last time, if the other party wants to attack again, they can only use forces above the A level. If that's the case, we might as well use one trick to lure the snake out of the hole. Quote. If you want to lure a snake, you must have bait. Li Mo is obviously willing to be the bait. He is not afraid of the threat of A-level awakened people. The corners of Li Mo's mouth curled up slightly, and he nodded in relief. You can have such courage and not fall into the prestige of my Li family in Qingyang. This plan is on the right track. Remember to go and tell Xiaoyuan yourself. You must behave the same as usual in the past few days, and you will treat it as if you don't know about it at all. The inner ghost hiding in our Li family will find a way to promote progress. Quote. Yes, Li Mo said solemnly. Well, go down. Li Mo waved his hand. Afterwards, he was left alone in the study. He lowered his head, looked at the unresolved endgame on the chessboard, picked up a sunspot, and slowly dropped it towards the chessboard. Inner ghost, number 3, Tiandawei, Qingyang Li Shi. Who is this ghost? Or is there more than one? Li Mo thought secretly in his heart. Based on his last action, he had locked a range. But there are still more than a dozen people, and these people are extremely reliable core disciples of the Li family in Qingyang, with stronger blood. If it wasn't for his wrong actions, it would be difficult for Li Mo to suspect these people. But on the other hand, it is precisely because of this that the difficulty of investigation will be greatly increased, which makes Li Mo a headache. It's not that easy to find out this ghost. However, having said that, Qin Mo is really surprised that he was able to detect such crucial information twice in a row. Unexpectedly, this kid is not only a top genius, but also an all-rounder. Quote. A smile appeared on Li Mo's face. He praised Qin Mo without hesitation, and his performance was so good. The information that the Li family in Qingyang could not dig out seems to be completely within reach for Qin Mo. You boy, what kind of awakener are you? How many secrets are you hiding? Li Mo was very puzzled in his heart, but the smile on his face became more and more intense. 4-page M. Security Bureau, 3rd floor. Qin Mo was still the same, sitting at his workstation, basking in the warm sun. Nothing happened all day today, basically the same as usual. The same was true for the other groups in the security department. During the lunch break, Qin Mo secretly checked again. Seeing that he was about to get off work, there was nothing unusual about it. It seems that Tiandawei is not going to make a move today. Qin Mo thought to himself as he leaned on his chair and swayed from side to side. Suddenly, Su Yin's voice sounded from the opposite side. Little handsome boy, do you want to have dinner together tonight? It's all up to Sister Su. I'm a loner, so of course I can do anything. Qin Mo replied casually. Hearing this, Su Yin smiled playfully and blinked her eyes. Can you really do anything? Eat, drink and sleep with me, see which Sister Su wants, it's all free. Su Yin raised her neck, stroked her white and smooth chin, and put on a pensive look. My sister wants to try it all, but it still depends on the time schedule in the evening. Anyway, it's settled. I'll wait for my sister after get off work. There is a new seafood buffet in Lingyun district. You know, it's most boring to go to the buffet alone. Su Yin said pitifully. Okay. Qin Mo would not refuse a free dinner. He smiled and said, I'll go with Sister Su. By the way, do they sell fresh abalone? Su Yin gave him a hard look. The two joked and chatted for a while, and the time passed quietly. Not long after, a warm current appeared in Qin Mo's body. Light energy points. 16, freely assignable. Today's temperature has dropped, so there are slightly fewer light energy points. Qin Mo opened the Gene Awakening panel and looked at the various attributes. Without thinking too much, he directly divided the 16 points into 8 equal parts, adding 2 points to each item. A thought flashed in my heart, and a huge warm current quickly spread throughout my body. Strength. 66, Awakening Skill, Super Strength 2. Qin Mo's eyes lit up. This was beyond his expectations. After all, this awakening of power was without warning. Calculating carefully, in fact, it has not been a few days since the last awakening of superpowers. However, it seems that Qin Mo became an awakened person only this month. The warm current is increasing the activity of his cells. He feels as if he has eaten more than a dozen bottles of Viagra, and his whole body is full of energy. Qin Mo slowly opened his palm, and closed his fist inch by inch, with a bright smile on his lips. The second level of super strength is similar to the strengthening of the Man of Steel, but it is simpler and more brutal. On the basis of the original strength, his strength has been directly doubled again, and the same is true for the ultimate strength. My current punch, I don't know how powerful it can be. I still need to find a place to try it later. The construction site behind the house is definitely not suitable. I am afraid that this punch will directly smash the floor. Hiss, it's really troublesome. Chin Mo scratched his head, feeling a little headache. Sometimes, being too strong is also a kind of distress. Anyway, I have to go to eat first, let's think about it slowly on the way. Chin Mo muttered casually. Afterwards, he tidied up the table, and left the security bureau building with Su Yin. The two drove Su Yin's small sports car all the way towards the self-service shop. Seats have been reserved in advance, 468 people. Chin Mo was speechless at this price. With his current savings, he can afford to eat, but it's time to spend money. They arrived at 5:30, and they ate until after 8 o'clock, and they ate their money back, and it was over. By the time Chin Mo got home, it was almost 9 o'clock. Baiyun District is not as prosperous as Lingyun District, especially in Guanghong Street, where the nightlife is not so colorful. There are very few pedestrians on the street at this point. Chin Mo put his hands behind his head and slowly turned into a corner, hiding himself in the shadows. Seeing that no one noticed him, Chin Mo squatted down and looked down at the ground. He thought about it all the way, and finally decided to use the earth to test his strength a little. This is the best sandbag, not easy to break. Chin Mo clenched his fists, raised his arms slightly, and his eyes became sharper. Call. He let out a long breath, and the next moment he punched out, deliberate punching plus fighting cattle across the mountain plus superpower 2. The power containing infinite terror passed through the ground at an unimaginable speed, and was transmitted to the depths of the ground. Boom! A loud noise suddenly sounded from the depths of the earth, like thunder in the daytime. The street where Chin Mo was located immediately trembled slightly, and cracks appeared on the cement-paved road. The cracks continued to spread, like a huge spider web. Chin Mo stared at this scene dumbfounded, his throat rolling slowly. Ha! He hurriedly lowered his head to look deep into the ground, and the perspective soundlessly opened. I saw a huge deep pit appeared out of thin air about 15 feet deep underground, and this deep pit was still collapsing continuously. Hold the grass, it's broken. When the words fell to the ground, Chin Mo dodged and disappeared in place in an instant. And the moment he disappeared, the piece under his feet collapsed directly, and a lot of dust filled the air. The wall that Chin Mo was leaning against also turned into a rootless duckweed because of the collapse of the foundation. It fell down and shattered into a pile of bricks. At this time, Chin Mo, who was standing at the end of the street, was staring at the scene in front of him with his eyes wide open. Before throwing this punch, he never thought that this punch would be so powerful. The deep pit continued to expand outwards until it reached Chin Mo's feet, and this spacious street was completely stepped down. It looked like a small earthquake had occurred. Fortunately, this street is close to the industrial area, and there are not many residential buildings nearby. Chin Mo opened the holographic vision and scanned around, confirming that no one was injured and there was no large loss of property. However, there was still a lot of movement here. Someone had already taken out a phone and called the relevant department. Ahem. Seeing this, Chin Mo couldn't help coughing lightly, touched his nose embarrassingly, and left here quietly. A quarter of an hour later, he was nestled on his sofa and took out his mobile phone to browse information. Presumably, there will be a report about an earthquake in a certain news in the imperial capital tomorrow. The next day, 9 o'clock in the morning. Holding a thermos cup, Chin Mo walked into the office of Group 7. The temperature is nice today, back to 37 degrees, which is good news for him. Throughout the morning, nothing happened, except fishing was fishing. Chin Mo thought that today would be the same as yesterday, but not long after he sat down after lunch, Li Yuan suddenly walked out of the small office. She stepped on a pair of white shoes, walked to the middle of the workstation, clapped her hands twice, and attracted everyone's attention. Li Yuan glanced across everyone's faces with a faint gaze, and said expressionlessly, "Everyone, go to work an hour early tomorrow." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but looked at each other. "Team leader, are you going on a mission?" Li Changfang asked. Li Yuan nodded slightly, hummed lightly, and continued. "A notice has been issued from above, and the streets in each group's jurisdiction will be inspected tomorrow. As I said earlier, the Security Bureau is mainly responsible for the security of the imperial capital and its surrounding areas. If it is broken down specifically, it is a matter of the security department. There are a total of 20 teams in the security department, and each team is responsible for an area. Although there are not many team members, the scope is not small. This kind of inspection is not the first time. Chin Mo also had it when he came in last year. It is an extremely rare busy time in the department. They need to work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the evening in order to go around the jurisdiction. Therefore, when they heard that it was an inspection mission, everyone just showed bitterness on their faces, but they didn't think much about it in their hearts. Although there is no need to leave the imperial capital this time, everyone should remain vigilant and take all the bullets that should be brought. Li Yuan instructed. Yes, Li Chengfeng and others answered in unison. Afterwards, Li Yuan nodded again and returned to the small office. As soon as she returned, she stood by the window and lit a cigarette, frowned slightly, and began to puff. Obviously, Li Yuan's heart is not as calm as it appears on the surface. Chin Mo had a panoramic view of all this. No inspection in the morning, no inspection in the evening, but at this time, it seems, Tiandawei is going to prepare for it. I don't know how Li Shi of Qingyang is preparing. Chin Mo thought to himself, then shook his head. He didn't bother about it. Soldiers come to block, water comes to Tutun. As long as he has enough strength to get close to him, any danger will not be a danger. Now let's see what the Tiandawei will do tomorrow. Time flies. Soon, the clock hanging on the wall quietly reached 5 o'clock. Chin Mo focused his eyes, the awakening panel appeared, and the bottom column had changed. Light energy points, 21, freely assignable. As the temperature rises, the accumulated solar energy also increases. It's still the same. Vision, strength, speed and defense are allocated 2 points each first. Afterwards, Chin Mo deliberated, and finally added 4 points to hearing, breathing, and recovery to ensure the balanced development of each attribute. The last remaining point was left to intelligence by him. The distribution of today's light energy points ended, and the warm current quickly flowed to all parts of the body. Speed, 61, awakening skill, 5 times the speed of sound. Chin Mo was taken aback for a moment, but his speed had been greatly improved again. 5 times the speed of sound, that is 1,700 meters per second. How terrifying is it to appear 3 miles away in a second? The previous Chin Mo was at double the speed of sound, and his maximum burst speed was about 800 meters per second. Now, on paper alone, he has doubled his promotion. Not to mention, this is far from Chin Mo's limit. How fast it is, I still need to find some time tonight to try it out. Chin Mo thought to himself. Afterwards, he picked up the thermos, greeted Su Yin, and walked out of the Security Bureau building. Since his physical fitness has been greatly improved, Chin Mo basically runs to and from get off work, which saves him a lot of commuting expenses. But this money has been fully subsidized in the food. It was the same today. He didn't go home to cook by himself. He just found a restaurant by the side of the road and ordered 2 side dishes. After eating, the evening wind blows and the night gets darker. Seeing that it was still early, Chin Mo turned to a nearby park and strolled around slowly. It was midsummer, and the girls were all dressed coolly, which was a feast for the eyes. Chin Mo didn't return to Guanghang Street until after 8 o'clock in the evening. But he didn't go home directly, but chose a secluded long street with few pedestrians. Standing at the end of the long street, Chin Mo's muscles began to tense piece by piece, from his upper body to his legs, and then to his toes. The next moment, he instantly disappeared in place. In the silent night sky, a sound boom suddenly sounded, and the air velocity changed suddenly. Click, click. 2 seconds later, Chin Mo appeared on the next street. He stopped and looked back, his brain quickly calculating the distance he had just run. 4,000 meters is exactly 8 miles, so my current limit speed is about 2,000 meters per second, which is almost 6 times the speed of sound. Chin Mo whispered to himself. 4 kilometers in 2 seconds, then 1 hour is 7,200 kilometers. Hiss. Chin Mo gasped, this speed has already surpassed the average plane. I don't know if A-level awakened people can have such a fast speed. He thought in his heart as he walked towards home. So, nothing to say all night. The next day, at 7:30 in the morning, Chin Mo appeared under the building of the Security Bureau. Usually at this time, he was still jogging in the sun on the streets of the imperial capital, but today is a little different. Although the assembly time announced above is 8 o'clock, many people have already gathered downstairs. Armed off-road vehicles parked quietly in the square, like a group of wild beasts ready to go. Each group has 2 cars, all with 6 seats, which are the same configuration as the last time they left the imperial capital to perform a mission. Most of the people in the 7th group have arrived. Su Yin and Li Yuan haven't come yet. Qin Mo was leaning against the side of the car board, basking in the sun while secretly listening to the other group's chats. After listening for a few minutes, he found that everyone regarded this as an ordinary inspection, and the conversation was very relaxed, and there was nothing unusual. Qin Mo waited for less than a quarter of an hour before Li Yuan and Su Yin appeared in their cars. "Good morning, Sister Su." Qin Mo greeted Su Yin with a smile. "Ah, it's early." Su Yin covered her mouth and yawned. "I'm really not used to getting up early all of a sudden. Today is going to be a busy day." "Yeah, it's really tiring. The rest of us probably have to be drivers, and my sister is afraid that she will die of sleepiness." Hearing this, Qin Mo took over the conversation and said with a smile, "Sister Su and I can drive together. It's fine if I drive for a while." "That's fine, sister, I'm not welcome." "Sister Su, why are you being polite to me?" The two had just chatted for a few words, when Li Yuan stepped on a pair of small black leather shoes. Her expression was as cold as ever. "Is everyone here?" She looked around and asked lightly. "Report to the team leader, everyone has arrived." Li Chengfeng jumped out and replied. Li Yuan nodded slightly, and then began to assign tasks. "Li Chengfeng, Wang Yan, 5 of you are in a team, and the rest are in my team." A total of 10 people were divided into 2 teams, each with 3 awakened people and 2 ordinary people. Of course, Qin Mo and Su Yin followed Li Yuan. Seeing that he couldn't share the same car with Li Yuan, Li Chengfeng opened his mouth immediately. "Leader, I think." But before he could finish his sentence, Li Yuan frowned slightly, glanced at him coldly, and asked, "What's your question?" Facing her cold gaze, the words that had reached his lips seemed to have suddenly turned into fishbone. Li Chengfeng lowered his head resentfully, and replied, "No, it's nothing." "Then get in the car and get ready to go," Li Yuan said lightly. Everyone claimed it was, and other groups also started to act. Afterwards, all 10 people got into the car. Qin Mo was in the driver's seat, and Li Yuan sat beside him. Turn the key, the engine starts to hum, and off-road vehicles drive out of the security station one by one. The warm sunlight shone directly on Qin Mo's face through the front windshield, continuously accumulating solar energy for him. Qin Mo steered the steering wheel and looked at the road with a calm face, but he had already secretly raised his vigilance and raised his heart of guard. The same was true for Li Yuan. She was sitting in the back seat of the car, with her legs crossed out of habit. She closed her eyes, as if she was taking a nap, but the 5 fingers she kept clenching and slowly opening revealed that her heart was not as calm as it appeared on the surface. Although Qin Mo didn't turn his head, he still saw this subtle movement clearly. At the same time, he also found someone was following their car. Through the holographic vision, Qin Mo could clearly see a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance and a thin body. This is a B-level awakened person. He came out of the security bureau. He should be the backup man prepared by the Qingyang Li family and specially arranged to protect Li Yuan. The Tiandawei had 2 A levels to attack, but the Qingyang Li family only sent B levels. It wasn't that they didn't pay attention to Li Yuan, it was obviously that after thinking about it, they felt that these 2 A levels wouldn't do anything to Li Yuan in person, that they were too overqualified. After all, Li Yuan is not even a high-level awakened person so far, so why did he need to dispatch A level? How can you use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken? Good steel must be used on the cutting edge, and Li Mo's side is the key point. In this way, a group of people soon arrived at the jurisdiction and began to patrol the streets one by one. As time went by, the sun became more venomous, which undoubtedly made the work more difficult. Except for Qin Mo, no one else was very interested. By 1 o'clock at noon, most of the district hadn't been there yet, but it was already lunchtime, and a few people randomly found a noodle restaurant. The imaginary attack did not come, and there was not even a ghost from Tiandawei, only the B rank sent by Qingyang Li followed along. Qin Mo let go of his hearing just now, and confirmed that nothing happened to Li Mo. Could it be that the afternoon is the time they chose to do it? He thought to himself. However, Until after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no abnormality, as if it was really an ordinary inspection task. However, there are still 4 hours before the end of the inspection, and it is not yet conclusive. And judging from the previous few times, Tiandi would like to take advantage of the darkness of the night to attack. Just as Chin Mo was pondering in his heart, a warm current flowed through his body again. Before he knew it, the light energy points were accumulated again. Today's temperature is already good, and he has been staying outside again, thinking that there will be a little more light energy points than before. Su Yin was driving the car, and Chin Mo sat in the co-pilot's seat, opened the Gene Awakening panel, and looked at the attributes of that column. Light energy points, 24, freely assignable. There are so many. Chin Mo was overjoyed, and the corners of his mouth curled up silently. The allocation plan is still the same as before, adding 2 points to each of vision, strength, speed and defense, and adding 4 points to the remaining 4 items. In this case, his current 8 attributes are: eyesight, 66. Listening, 62. Intelligence, 65. Breathing, 63. Strength, 70. Speed, 63. Recovery, 60. Defense, 62. Except for the slightly higher strength, the other 7 items are not bad, all of which are above 60 points, perfectly in line with the path of balanced development. The warm current quickly flowed to every corner of his body, and he felt as if his whole body was soaked in the hot spring. Light energy point, 0. All attributes have reached the superhuman passing value, and the genetic power has begun to be officially discovered. Suddenly, a piece of information suddenly appeared in Chin Mo's heart, and he couldn't help being taken aback. But before he could react, another piece of information appeared immediately after. Awakening skill, biological force field. Hold the grass, biological force field. Chin Mo instantly cheered up, his eyes were frighteningly bright. With a biological force field, that means flying. Chin Mo has been thinking about the awakening of the force field before, and now he has finally waited for this day. The attributes have all reached the superhuman passing value, and the genetic power has been officially discovered. What does this mean? He recalled the message that appeared briefly just now, and the superbrain quickly analyzed the specific meaning in it. Now all attributes are above 60 points. This should be the so-called passing value. Could it be that the Superman gene has just begun from now on? Chin Mo was surprised in his heart, but after thinking about it, it seemed reasonable. What kind of existence is Superman? One punch can blow up a planet, and one breath can extinguish the sun. He is still far away from the step of growth. It is not an exaggeration to say that this is the entry stage. No wonder the biological force field has suddenly awakened. Chin Mo muttered to himself. The warm current in his body stayed longer than before, and it seemed to be injecting energy into every cell of him. With the biological force field, the most intuitive change is that it can affect its own gravity. With Chin Mo's current physical attributes, it is naturally impossible to fly directly, and he needs to absorb more solar energy. However, now he will have quite amazing jumping ability, stronger strength, more terrifying steel body, and faster speed beyond the limit. As for how amazing and strong it is, Chin Mo doesn't know yet. He needs to explore the limits of his body by himself. Unexpectedly, I didn't wait for the Tiandaway today, but I waited for the awakening of the biological force field. It seems that my fortune today is pretty good. Looking at the darkening sky, the smile on Chin Mo's face became brighter and brighter. The few people patrolled all the way until 9:30 before they settled the jurisdiction they were in charge of. During this period, there was no abnormal situation at all, and it can be said to be extremely smooth. In the expected Tiandaway, not even a ghost appeared, let alone an A-level awakener. Chin Mo drove the car and took Li Yuan and the others back to the security bureau safely, without hindrance. Afterwards, several people got out of the car one after another, their faces full of exhaustion. Let's stop here today. Everyone has worked hard. Go back tonight and have a good rest. Li Yuan looked around and said lightly. Hearing this, Li Changfeng and the others immediately smiled, waved their hands and hurriedly said that it was not hard work at all. Facing their courtship and hypocrisy, Li Yuan's expression did not change, and her heart did not fluctuate at all. She said to herself, "Go to work at normal time tomorrow, let's dismiss." Yes, a few people agreed, and they left together in 2s and 3s, all looking a little resentful. Su Yin at the side stretched her waist, showing off her graceful curves, yawned and said, "It's finally over, I'm really exhausted today, I'm leaving first, see you tomorrow." After that, she waved her hand and walked towards the parking lot. "See you tomorrow, Sister Su," Chin Mo said with a smile. Seeing her gradually receding back, he smiled and shook his head, walked out of the security station alone, and walked slowly towards home. Chin Mo was going to walk back just like that, but before he could take 20 steps, a very expensive sports car stopped beside him and honked its horn a few times. He turned his head to look, and saw the car window slowly rolled down, revealing Li Yuan's face. "Get in the car and drop by." Concise as always. "Ah, okay." Chin Mo opened the car door and sat down on the passenger seat, but he didn't refuse. Since someone is willing to send him back, there is no reason to refuse such a good thing. "You must be very tired after driving all day today. Take a good rest tonight." Li Yuan looked at the road and said suddenly. Hearing this, Chin Mo scratched his head and said casually, "Fortunately, it's just driving." After the words were finished, the atmosphere in the car suddenly became stagnant, and neither of them spoke again. After driving for 5 or 6 miles like this, the slightly awkward atmosphere was just broken. Obviously they are all members of the 7th group, but the treatment of you and Su Yin is much lower than that of Li Changfeng and the others, I know this. I will try my best to make up for you in other aspects, and I hope you will not feel unbalanced," Li Yuan said abruptly. The other aspects she mentioned are naturally economic aspects, such as the 100,000 yuan last time. However, Li Yuan can only make up for it, not completely change it. The huge gap between the awakened and ordinary people, and the resulting high and low status, have long been deeply ingrained. Chin Mo had seen this very clearly a long time ago. This social contradiction has existed for hundreds of years, and I think it will continue to continue. Actually, this is not bad. Chin Mo didn't say much, just said this, and then the two fell into an embarrassing situation with nothing to say again. But fortunately, Li Yuan drove very fast, and he was delivered to the door of his house in a short time. Afterwards, the two said goodbye to each other and separated. Lonely night, silent street. Li Yuan held the steering wheel with one hand, and gently rubbed his temples with the other. Her spirit has been tense today, guarding against possible attacks at any time. Therefore, although I didn't do anything, I was very tired. But at this time, the Tiandaway still didn't make any moves, and I thought it would not do anything again today. Li Yuan heaved a sigh of relief. Her body relaxed a little, she slowly stepped on the brakes, and the car slowly stopped in front of the house she had just moved to. Opening the car door, Li Yuan entered the house stepping on those small black leather shoes, stepped on each other and kicked off the shoes, and put on a pair of pink slippers at the door. At the same time, she conveniently pressed the light switch in the living room. Bright warm yellow light poured out in an instant, illuminating every corner of the living room, and also illuminating the man sitting on the couch. The man was wearing a tuxedo. He was crossing his legs and looking at Li Yuan at the door with a smile on his face. "Miss Li, I have been waiting for a long time." He said so. Hearing this, Li Yuan's body froze, and then his expression suddenly changed. She never expected that Tiandaway would choose to act at this time, and even sneaked into her home one step ahead of time. Click. The glass shattered suddenly, and the B-level awakener who had been following Li Yuan today broke through the window. His whole body was full of flames, like an arrow flying from the string, and the target was the man on the sofa. However, in the next moment, he was strangled by the throat of fate. An arm pierced through the flames on his body, and lightly grabbed his neck. Hush! The smile on the man's face remained unchanged, and his fingers made a silent movement around his mouth. "I just want to ask Miss Li to dance, why do you insist on disturbing us?" A stream of water suddenly appeared out of thin air, doused the flames on his body, and poured in along his eyes, ears, mouth and nose at the same time. Boom! The body of the B-level awakener fell to the ground with a muffled sound. The man in the tuxedo slowly took out a white handkerchief from his breast pocket, and wiped his hands elegantly. Although he didn't have anything in his hand. "Now, can Miss Li dance with me?" He smiled and looked at Li Yuan, but this smile was like a devil. It goes without saying that the identity of the man in the tuxedo is easy to kill a B-level awakened person in seconds. Obviously, he is one of the A levels of Tiandaway. Li Yuan is only a D rank, facing an A rank can be said to be certain death. But the more you are in such a dangerous time, the less you can panic, you must keep calm. She didn't answer the man's words, but pulled down the neckline suddenly, and held the pendant that had been hanging around her neck. The pendant was torn off, and a ball the size of a thumb was crushed, forming a khaki transparent mask in front of her in the blink of an eye. The man in the tuxedo watched all this quietly, smiled and nodded. Miss Li is worthy of being Li Guogong's daughter, but she actually wears an elemental crystal with her. If I'm not mistaken, this should be precipitated by an A-level awakener who has controlled the earth element. The earth element is known for its defense, and it is indeed a good life-saving weapon. Quote, he easily explained the origin of this mask, and at the same time raised his arm and snapped his fingers. Slap. Snapping his fingers down, another stream of water appeared in the room, and amidst the surge of water, it turned into a huge basalt. Afterwards, the Xuanwu slammed into Li Yuan fiercely. Boom! There was a loud noise in an instant, and smoke and dust rose everywhere. The terrifying power of the man in the tuxedo actually directly destroyed the house. However, Li Yuan was not injured, and the crystal of the earth element resisted all the attacks. But her complexion was very ugly, because a shallow crack had appeared on the mask in front of her. After all, a dead A-level cannot be compared with a living person. Very good, then let's do it again. The man in the tuxedo stood in the ruins, smiling and summoning another stream of water. Then, there was another loud bang. There were more cracks on the mask, and the terrifying force was also transmitted to Li Yuan. Blood was already overflowing from the corner of her mouth. Obviously, as long as she does this 2 more times, she is bound to be shattered together with this elemental crystal. The gap between the two is too huge, and the breath of despair has filled her heart. Boom! The water flow hit again, and the mask was already crumbling, and it might be shattered at any time. Li Yuan spat out a mouthful of blood, her eyesight was extremely blurred, she had been severely injured, and she fell powerlessly to the ground. Tisk tisk tisk, what a beautiful woman, it's just a pity. The man in the tuxedo shook his head regretfully. He raised his arm and waved his hand. The last stream of water rushed towards Li Yuan. After this blow, there will be a roar here, playing the most beautiful movement for the decline of a 1,000-year-old family. However, after a second, nothing happened. The man in the tuxedo's smile froze on his face, the sonata he expected did not sound at all, and Li Yuan did not die in his hands. The water fell helplessly on the ground, and the smoke and dust diffused slowly, revealing a faint figure. In front of the mask, another person appeared at some point. Under the dense night, Qin Mo stood quietly among the ruins, smiling at the stunned tuxedo man in front of him. It's my turn. The voice fell, and he raised his right arm. 5 meters. The distance between the two is only 5 meters. But Qin Mo's current limit speed has exceeded 2,000 meters per second. The moment the tuxedo man's brain reacted, Qin Mo suddenly disappeared in place and appeared in front of him, almost face to face with him. His right arm was level with his shoulder, his elbow jutted back, and his fingers were clenched into a fist. The next moment, Qin Mo punched out. Boom! A huge roar sounded, playing the most beautiful movement for the fall of an A-level awakened person. Puff! The man in the tuxedo suddenly spat out a mouthful of old blood, his eyes protruded, his body was sluggish, and his face was like gold paper. He flew upside down uncontrollably, all the bones in his body were shattered, and his internal organs were severely injured. Too fast, everything happened too fast. It doesn't matter whether Qin Mo appeared or Qin Mo punched. Before he even had time to make any resistance, his life was already hanging by a thread. As a veteran awakened who has advanced to A level for a full 10 years, the man in the tuxedo never thought that he would have such a day. Hearing a muffled bang, he crashed into 2 walls one after another, and then embedded in the stone bricks on the opposite side of the main road, his limbs fell limply. The tuxedo on his body was torn into rags at this moment, and was slowly soaked by his oozing blood. Look at his current distressed appearance, where is the elegance just now? The man in the tuxedo kept coughing up blood. He raised his head slowly, looked at Chinmo in the distance with blurred vision, watched him disappear in place, and then appeared in front of him. Ho, ho. There seemed to be two rusty chains twisting in his throat. The man in the tuxedo exhausted all his strength, moved his right arm embedded in the wall, and slowly raised his palm, his 5 fingers trembling violently. Gritting his teeth, he drew a small circular arc under the night sky with his index finger, and then suddenly streams of light blue water gushed out of nowhere in the air. The water flow did not attack Chinmo, but quickly pounced on the man in the tuxedo, covering his whole body, forming a lifelike basalt on the surface of his body. Obviously, the blow just now made him completely give up the desire to attack, and now he only hopes to save his own life. Unfortunately, this idea is just wishful thinking. Chinmo lowered his head slightly and looked down at him condescendingly, with a slightly strange look in his eyes. I didn't expect you to make a coffin for yourself when you were about to die. He muttered in a low voice. The man in the tuxedo didn't hear what he said clearly. He only saw Chinmo's mouth open and close a few times, then took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Call. The cold air transformed by the powerful lungs, carrying an extremely terrifying low temperature, enveloped him. The flowing water gradually slowed down, and finally stagnated completely, condensing into ice inch by inch. The man in the tuxedo widened his eyes, his pupils were full of disbelief. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't do it at all. He could only watch helplessly as his life flowed away from his body little by little. 3 seconds later, a beautiful ice sculpture appeared strangely in the midsummer night of the imperial capital. From a distance, it looks like a very elegant work of art. The horror on the man's face in the tuxedo was also accompanied by his death, completely frozen in this moment. An A-level elemental awakener died just like that. Chinmo shook his head, then turned to look at Li Yuan, who was lying in the ruins. Although the mask formed by the crystallization of the earth element is full of cracks, it still protects her firmly. He turned on the perspective, scanned Li Yuan's body from head to toe, and confirmed that she was only in a temporary coma caused by multiple internal injuries, and her life was not in danger. In order to kill a D-level awakener like the team leader, the Tiandaway actually used an A-level. Chinmo frowned slightly. His super brain was constantly analyzing and calculating, and at the same time his hearing was instantly released, radiating for 100 miles. 5 seconds later, the super brain accurately reported Li Mo's specific location based on massive feedback. He was currently 67 miles away, on the top floor of a high-rise building, and he seemed to be having dinner with other people. After confirming the location, Chinmo's figure disappeared into the dark night again. The night was as silent as ever. If you ignore the ruins here and the lifelike ice sculpture, it seems that nothing happened just now. At the same time, Jinmao Tower. This building was built in the core area of Lingyun District, with a total of 66 floors. It is a very famous landmark building. The specifications of the building are quite high, and ordinary people cannot afford it. This is especially true for the open-air restaurant located on the 67th floor, which generally only receives the core children of the 1,000-year-old family, as well as some upper-class people with high status in the imperial capital. Standing here and looking at it at a glance, you can have a panoramic view of most of the imperial capital, and there is a faint feeling of being superior, and this. It's the taste of power. At this time, Li Mo is dining here with 2 friends. He and Li Yuan's thoughts coincided with each other, and they both felt that the Tiandaway would not do anything again today, so they relaxed their vigilance. But this is exactly what the Tiandi Club takes advantage of. While Li Mo was eating, on the 50th floor of the Jinmao Tower, a vigorous middle-aged man was sitting by the window of a tea room, sipping tea slowly. This person is none other than Li Mo, the current patriarch of the Li clan in Qingyang. He actually chose to act personally to protect Li Mo and be the Oriole hidden in the end. There is an S level in command. No matter how many A levels come to that day, it will be useless. Although Li Mo was sipping tea with his head bowed, there was a faint dragon prestige around him, and his eyes had already turned into dragon eyes, clearly reflecting the scene on the top floor. The elevator door opened, and a waiter pushed the dining car towards Li Mo and the others. The waiter looked very normal, but as he got closer, his figure was constantly changing. He grew taller inch by inch, his limbs became thicker, and soon covered his clothes, and sharp black hairs grew out. Obviously, this is another A-level awakener arranged by Tiandaway. The moment the waiter appeared abnormal, Li Mo found him. He put down the teacup, raised his head and smiled slightly. The majestic dragon prestige instantly filled the air, and he was about to make a move. However, at this moment, Li Mo was stunned for a moment, his expression stunned. He sensed a very familiar aura, approaching Jinmao Tower rapidly. The eyes flickered a few times, and the shadow 5 miles away was immediately reflected in the pupils. This person is Qin Mo. Li Mo frowned, and couldn't help muttering, "Why are you AB rank here to join in the fun?" After being promoted to a high-level awakened person, the gap between each level is like clouds and mud, especially between B level and A level. Obviously, Li Mo thinks that no matter how top-notch genius Qin Mo is, it is impossible for him to play any role in tonight's battle. But in the next second, his brows frowned even tighter, and his expression became more and more stunned. Wait, this speed. Only a second passed, and Qin Mo was still 5 miles away, but now, this guy has already arrived downstairs. 5 miles per second, Li Mo was dumbfounded. Is he AB rank? Everyone, wait patiently, I will put it on the shelves in a few days, just wait for it to be put on the shelves, I will definitely let everyone have a good time watching it. It's certainly not AB grade. Li Mo was suddenly not in a hurry to make a move. Today, he wanted to see what kind of surprise this kid Qin Mo would bring him. Anyway, he himself is an S-level awakener, and he has enough confidence in his own strength. As long as he stands here, it means that he is in control of the overall situation, and there is no need to worry about some unexpected situations. Ever since, Li Mo sat back calmly and poured himself a cup of hot tea leisurely. At this time, Qin Mo was standing downstairs, looking up at the 200-meter-high building with his neck up. It took him less than 14 seconds to get here from Li Yuan. Because of the awakening of the biological force field, Qin Mo's own gravity has been reduced, and his limit speed has successfully broken through from the original 2,000 meters per second to over 2,500 meters per second. In short, roughly 7.5 times the speed of sound. Without hesitation, he immediately unfolded his holographic vision, covering the entire Jinmao Tower. The super brain sorted a lot of information into categories in just a split second, organized and summarized it, and constructed a very clear three-dimensional view. Qin Mo glanced at it and frowned immediately. Why is Brother Li here? His eyes moved down to the 50th floor, and the perspective was quietly opened, and Li Mo's appearance of drinking tea calmly and leisurely was captured in his eyes. Brother is just an ordinary person. It's really too dangerous for him to stay here at this time. Qin Mo thought to himself. In the holographic vision, Li Mo's appearance is indistinguishable from that of ordinary people, and the colors displayed by his thermal imaging are not as eye-catching as those of the awakened ones. Therefore, Qin Mo only regarded him as an ordinary person and did not discover the truth. As for why Li Mo would be like this, it has already been said before. When Qin Mo borrowed Li Yuan's authority to check the information on high-level awakened people from the Security Bureau last time, he said this about the S level. The body of a demigod, the way is natural. What is nature? At this moment, he is no different from ordinary people, this is natural. Since old brother Li happens to be here, let's not let Tiandawei act recklessly. Qin Mo frowned, and the next second, boom, there was a muffled sound, and the ground where Qin Mo was standing collapsed, and the broken floor tiles looked like a huge spider web. With terrifying explosive power and the newly awakened biological force field, his jump is more than 200 meters high. At the moment of his action, fighting broke out on the top floor of the building. When the waiter was 5 meters away from Li Mo, his huge body completely exploded his clothes and tore his disguise. Li Mo suddenly turned his head to look, his pupils shrank slightly, and his face suddenly changed, full of disbelief. But at this time, the waiter's body was still expanding, surpassing 3 feet in the blink of an eye, like a little giant. His arms were extremely slender, falling straight to his knees, and black hairs that were as sharp as steel needles sprouted all over his body, very vigorous. The shadow on the top floor suddenly became thicker, and dozens of tentacles stretched out from the darkness, entangled towards the giant from all directions. The shadow behind Li Mo also changed at the same time. He kicked his feet hard on the ground, and fell backwards, trying to use the shadow to escape. However, how could a mere dark tentacle trap an A-level awakened person? The tentacles didn't even take half a breath, the giant just let out a muffled grunt, and broke them all apart. The A-level looked at Li Mo, who was about to merge with the shadow. His indifferent eyes were full of sarcasm, and the corners of his mouth slowly opened, revealing a ferocious smile. He raised his huge right hand, clenched it into a fist, raised it high, and then slammed it towards his feet. This fist created a turbulent wind, and the phantom of a giant ape flashed past him. Obviously, this person is an A-level awakener of the mimic system. Boom! As soon as the punch landed, the ceiling on the top floor of the building was instantly shattered, and a huge pit appeared. Li Mo was shaken out from the shadows, drew a graceful arc in the air, and fell heavily on the 66th floor. His two friends did not escape such a fate, but because they were both awakened, they still left a life. A random punch can smash a floor. The terrifying and destructive power of A-level awakened people can be seen. And this is just the beginning, far from over. The A-level member of the Tiandawe put his hands together this time, forming a fist, aimed at the soles of his feet, and was about to smash it down again. However, the moment he raised his hands, a figure suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. There was a hint of doubt in the eyes of the giant ape, but then he saw a fist rapidly enlarged in his pupil. A thousandth of a second later, Chinmo punched him hard on the head with all his strength. This punch was the peak and the most extreme power he could throw out now, and he didn't hold back the slightest bit. An awakened A-level mimicry system was sent flying by the terrifying power of this punch. Moreover, the moment he flew out of the roof, he had already lost his breath of life. With this punch, Chinmo pierced his skull through his invincible defense, and directly shattered his brain. Under the crushing force of thousands of tons, that A-level brain turned into a pile of paste in an instant. He didn't come and had other reactions, so he just followed in the footsteps of another companion. A few seconds later, there was a loud bang downstairs, and a huge deep pit was smashed into the ground by his body, causing a burst of smoke and dust. Chinmo landed on the top of the building, stood on the edge and looked down at his miserable death. To be precise, he was looking at the power of his own punch. I didn't expect that my growth would be so fast, and I could instantly kill A-level before I knew it. Chinmo heaved a sigh of relief, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He was very satisfied with his growth during this period. Especially the biological force field, just awakened, has given Chinmo a lot of sweetness. Judging from the two short battles just now, he has already surpassed ordinary A-level awakeners in terms of speed, strength, and defense. Although, Chinmo didn't have so many fancy attack methods, such as turning into an ape, summoning water, covering his body with flames, etc. However, in the face of absolute power and invincible defense, what's the use of being fancy? Thinking of this, the smile on Chinmo's face became brighter and brighter. At this time, the Jinmao Tower was in a panic. Whether it was the loud noise caused by the sudden collapse of the top floor just now, or the giant corpse that appeared downstairs now, it was enough to bring great shock to ordinary people. Many people have called the security bureau, urgently needing rescue. It's just that tonight is destined to be chaotic for a while. It wasn't long before the security department finished its patrol, and the tired people were still on their way home. It was not an easy task to gather together. What's more, the director is still here in a coma. However, like Li Yuan, he only suffered serious internal injuries and his life was not in danger. Afterwards, Chinmo walked slowly towards the stairs, ready to go downstairs and go home. The corridors are very crowded now, and people's instinctive reaction when encountering danger is to stay away from the source of danger first. All in all, let's talk about leaving Jinmao Tower first. But Chinmo soon reached the 50th floor of the building. Li Mo was still poised, sitting there drinking tea with a calm expression. He didn't even move his buttocks. Ahem. Seeing this, Chinmo coughed lightly, then patted him on the shoulder, pretending to be pleasantly surprised. Hey, Brother Li, what a coincidence, I didn't expect to meet you here. Hearing this, Li Mo raised his head and glanced at him with strange eyes. Yeah, it's a coincidence. You and I are really destined to meet each other, he said quietly. Hearing this, Chinmo frowned. He said calmly, why is brother here tonight? Li Mo didn't answer immediately, but waved his hand, motioning him to sit down. The two had known each other for so long, and Chinmo was not polite to him, and sat down across from him aggressively. Li Mo picked up a teacup and poured him a cup of hot tea himself. The fragrance of the tea overflowed immediately. There are some things in the company that need to be dealt with, and the people below are not up to date, so I have to come here in person. He explained. Hearing this, Chin Mo nodded slowly, without any suspicion in his heart. As early as the beginning, he knew that Li Mo was not a simple person. He would always mention his family and company on weekdays, and he presumably was a very rich boss. Therefore, Chin Mo was not surprised to see him drinking tea sitting in this magnificent Jinmao building. As for the company affairs, when the two met a few days ago, they talked about Li Mo's family company being invaded because of network security, and he was very busy. It's just, now that the building is in chaos, Li Mo can still be so calm. This mentality is really not something ordinary people can have. Without the experience of being in a high position all year round, it is difficult to be so calm. It seems that Brother Li's status is higher than I imagined. I don't know who he is working for. Chin Mo thought to himself. He took a sip of hot tea to moisten his throat, and asked casually, it seems that something happened to this building, bro, why don't we drink tea in another place? What are you afraid of? If it's a small matter, the people from the Security Bureau will naturally deal with it. If it's really a big thing, how can you escape? Li Mo shrugged, smiled and said, we are on the 50th floor. Hearing this, Chin Mo looked stunned, couldn't help but smiled dumbly, shook his head, and said, don't say it, the reasoning is indeed such a reasoning, I didn't expect you to see it thoroughly, brother. Speaking of which, why are you here, kid? Li Mo put on a puzzled look, and asked, I remember your home is in Baiyun district, at least 50 or 60 miles away from here. I don't want to come either, but who makes me have to be busy with some things at work? This can be regarded as a rare busy time for me, but I didn't expect to work overtime until this point. Chin Mo spread his hands and took out the draft he had prepared long ago. Look at the helpless look on his face, pretending to be real. People who don't know, really think he is a social animal who works overtime all day. Li Mo looked indifferent on the surface, but in fact he had already sneered in his heart. He still remembered that the last time Chin Mo talked about the crystallization of elements, he said that he happened to be on a business trip that day. Co-authored, the so-called business trips and overtime work are all people from the Shatiandaway. This kid, does he work in the Security Bureau? Li Mo complained from the bottom of his heart. However, if Chin Mo is really a member of the Security Bureau, then that would be great, he might be happy at the corners of his mouth. Chin Mo tonight completely shocked him. He originally thought that Chin Mo was just a B-level, a top-notch genius. In analogy, it is equivalent to only being stronger than Li Crazy Li from the Li family in Qingyang, Chu Tianzhao from the Chu family in Zhenbei, and other outstanding children from aristocratic families. You know, this is scary enough, and promotion to S rank in the future is a certainty. But who knows, if you don't see it, you won't know it, and you will be shocked when you see it. Tonight, all the evaluations and guesses made by Li Mo in the past have been completely overturned. The terrifying speed of 5 miles per second, the astonishing explosive power of jumping more than 200 meters, and a powerful A-level power with a single punch. Chin Mo is exactly the top group of A-level awakened people. The point is, he is only 23 years old this year. In 5 years, oh no, maybe within 3 years, Chin Mo might be able to touch that threshold and be promoted to S rank. Li Mo believed that with his old-fashioned vision, Chin Mo would be the most potential, most amazing, and most terrifying peerless genius in the entire Dakin generation. He is bound to overwhelm an era. To be able to amaze a long-established S-level awakener so much, and to say such an evaluation, one can imagine how important Chin Mo's performance tonight is. This night, his status in Li Mo's heart has risen infinitely again, much more important than Li lunatics and his ilk. However, for such a peerless genius, no matter how important it is, it cannot be overestimated. Li Mo inevitably had that thought in his heart again. He really wanted to win Chin Mo to the Li family in Qingyang. It's a pity that he knew Chin Mo's temperament, so he didn't say this. Anyway, except for him, the other 1,000-year-old families, including the great Qin imperial family, don't know Chin Mo's amazing talent. The Li family in Qingyang has already seized the opportunity. If Chin Mo changes his mind later, the Li family will be his first choice. That's enough. Not to mention, Chin Mo has already acted extremely evil at a young age. If exposed too early, it may not be a good thing for him. Why? Li Mo let out a long breath, his eyes moved, and he was secretly glad that he was the first to discover Chin Mo. Seeing this, Chin Mo couldn't help asking in doubt, "Brother, why are you sighing?" "Oh, it's nothing, I just feel that many things have happened recently, and the world is a bit impermanent. I didn't expect that the imperial capital, as the absolute center of Dokkan, would be so chaotic." Li Mo shook his head. "There's nothing you can do about it. No matter how prosperous the city is, there will always be a bunch of rats in the sewers." Chin Mo poured him a cup of tea. Li Mo nodded approvingly, picked up his tea and took a sip, then said, "Do you want to play 2 games?" Chin Mo took out his phone and took a look. It was already past 10 o'clock. "Forget it tonight, brother, let's make an appointment another day, I have to go to work tomorrow morning." He refused. "Well, that's fine." Li Mo slightly nodded. Afterwards, the two chatted for a while, and when the pot of tea was finished, Chin Mo's ears also heard the sound of a siren from afar. It was the black off-road vehicle of the Security Bureau, speeding at high speed in the imperial capital. After such a long time, the security office has almost assembled, and they are rushing to this place at a high speed. Tiandaway has already lost 2 A levels tonight, so it is unlikely that they will continue to attack. If Li Mo is safe and sound, Chin Mo doesn't have to worry anymore. Thinking in this way, he stood up and said goodbye to Li Mo with a smile. Li Mo nodded happily, it was all right. After the two separated, Chin Mo walked towards the outside of the Jinmao building. It didn't take long for him to squeeze downstairs from the crowd, with a slight cold wind blowing against his face. As Chin Mo walked out, he glanced at the deep hole made by the A-level awakened person. Unexpectedly, with this casual glance, his eyes suddenly became strange, and his sharp eyes immediately discovered something special. He saw 2 palm-sized black bones, which looked like 2 knuckles. At this time, the bones were quietly lying beside the huge corpse, exuding a faint and gloomy light, covered by a few pieces of rubble, extremely inconspicuous under the dense night. "This is..." Chin Mo frowned slightly, recalling the short battle just now. He can be sure that when he killed this unlucky fool, there was absolutely no such thing on him. In other words, it only appeared after his death. The super brain immediately started running at high speed, retrieving the information in the brain, and after a while, Chin Mo guessed the origin of this thing. After the death of A-level and above awakened people, their powerful power will not dissipate immediately, but will precipitate Holy Spirit relics or crystallization of elements. For example, the pendant that Li Yuan took out, and the ice pick sent back from the border, were all precipitated by the awakened after death. The A-level of the Tiandaway can tell at a glance that he is an awakened person of the mimic system, so these 2 bones are obviously relics of the Holy Spirit. Since it is a relic of the Holy Spirit, then... Chin Mo pondered in his heart, his brows slowly relaxed, he glanced around, and then suddenly disappeared into the night. 15 seconds later, Chin Mo appeared at the ruins of Li Yuan. At the same time, he held 2 dark gold bones in his hand. The person was killed by Chin Mo, so this is Chin Mo's spoils, and of course he will not leave it to the Security Bureau. Li Yuan was still in a coma. It seemed that if he didn't get medical treatment, he might not be able to wake up in a short time. But Chin Mo is not worried about her safety. The mask formed by the condensed earth elements will protect her very well. Even if it is all fragmented, it can still resist the attacks of B-level and below awakened people. The power of elemental crystallization can be seen. As for the reason why Chin Mo wants to come back here now instead of going home directly, it is naturally because he wants to take away the elemental crystal precipitated by another A-level. Looking at the lifelike ice sculpture embedded in the wall, Chin Mo put on the dark gold knuckles he just got, and tapped lightly on the ice sculpture. Knuckles are slightly cool to the touch, and the texture is extremely hard, but there is nothing special about it. However, with this light tap, fine cracks immediately appeared on the ice sculpture. Click and wipe. There was a crisp and pleasant sound in the night sky, and then a pile of broken ice appeared on the ground. The body of the A-level awakener was naturally shattered into parts along with the ice. Chin Mo frowned slightly, the scene looked quite creepy. When he knocked just now, his body controlled the strength, which was no different from the strength of ordinary people. But the effect it caused was extraordinary. Although this thing is useless to me, ordinary people can cause huge destructive power when holding it, and it is only produced by A level. No wonder Tiandi wants to snatch S level elemental crystals. Chinmo looked at the knuckles in his hand and muttered in a low voice. Afterwards, he squatted down and picked up a light blue streamer from the ice, which was the crystallization of water elements. The streamer is about 5 fingers wide and more than 1 meter long. It is as light as nothing when held, extremely silky, and slightly translucent. The moment Chinmo got the streamer, he knew how to use this elemental crystal. With a thought in his mind, there seemed to be a sudden surge of water in the ribbon in his hand, and the water elements in the air suddenly became denser. In an instant, the streamer was 3 times as big as before, wrapping itself around his side. Chinmo picked up the knuckles, and lightly punched the streamer in front of him. The streamer trembled slightly, and there were light blue ripples on the surface. It seems that the power of the knuckle tiger has been reduced layer by the water element. Chinmo whispered softly. With another thought in his mind, the streamer returned to its original appearance, lying quietly in his hand. Immediately afterwards, Chinmo exploded with speed and disappeared in the dark night. A few seconds later, he had returned home. Ever since the bio-force field became available, it has become much easier for Chinmo to travel and do errands. The sonic boom brought by the instantaneous high-speed is absorbed by the force field, allowing him to hide his tracks better. After arriving home, Chinmo hung the streamer on the hanger and threw the knuckles into the drawer. These 2 things, 1 attack and 1 defense, are a perfect match. However, the knuckle tiger's attack power is not comparable to Chinmo's super strength, and the streamer's defense is far inferior to his steel body, so it's better to obediently eat ashes in the corner. Of course, it might be useful at some point in the future. For example, when he has a child, it would be good to protect the child. Afterwards, Chinmo walked into the bathroom humming a ditty, turned on the shower and happily took a cold shower. It didn't take much effort for him to kill 2 A levels in a row tonight. The main role of the 2 awakened members of the Tiandaway is to give Chinmo a clearer understanding of his current strength. This is what he has always wanted, the strength enough to be close to him. The imperial capital was in chaos most of the night. Especially the security department. After running around for a day, they are very busy. But the final result was good, and by the next morning, it was completely back on track. The Imperial Capital Morning Post reported on the 2 incidents last night, but there were no relevant words such as Tiandaway or awakened, and the whole article was full of useless nonsense. They characterized this incident as the aftermath of a small earthquake a few days ago. The public opinion guidance was perfect and did not cause panic among the public. As for the witnesses who accidentally saw the truth, they also tried to post on the internet, but without exception, they all fell into the sea without any disturbance. For ordinary people, it may be difficult to know what the truth is like in this life. It is too easy for a behemoth like the Li family of Qingyang to do some tricks. At this point, it was already the afternoon of the 2nd day. Li Mo knocked on the door of the study, and then walked into it. Li Mo was the only one in the study. He looked at Li Mo, motioned him to close the door, and asked slowly, "How is your injury?" "Father Lao is concerned. I am fine. The younger sister's injury is more serious, and she is still in the Imperial Hospital." Li Mo replied. "Well, send more reliable staff to the hospital. I was negligent this time. I never thought that Tiandaway would actually play this trick." Li Mo frowned slightly, and explained, "The opponent's plan is to divide the troops, and the purpose is to make it difficult for us to care about each other. In this way, we will be able to kill one." Hearing this, Li Mo nodded and said with a smile, "Although this plan is simple, it is very vicious when you look closely, but even though the TND way has a vicious plan, it still can't win against Father. Although our Li family lost a B-level awakened person this time, we lost 2 A-level awakeners. No matter how you look at it, it is a surefire deal." Quote, "The identities of these 2 people should be carefully checked by the people below. Since they are A-level, they cannot be ordinary unknown people." Li Mo confessed. "I've given the order. It's not difficult to find the A-level person who appeared in the Jinmao Tower, but the one from Shaoyuan will take some effort." The corner of Li Mo's mouth twitched, and he said helplessly, "You arranged for the backhand to directly beat that person into a pile of minced meat, so it's hard to identify his identity." Hearing this, the expression on Li Mo's face also froze for a moment, and he secretly scolded Qin Mo in his heart. Killing is killing, why make it so bloody? It's better to use more effort. Let Xiaoyuan help her after she wakes up. Yes, Li Mo nodded. He didn't mention the relics of the Holy Spirit and the crystallization of elements. As for the identity of this mysterious second hand, although he was very curious, he tactfully did not ask any further questions. For a 1,000-year-old family like the Li family in Qingyang, the background is too deep, and there are many secrets in existence. And these secrets often require certain qualifications to know. Since Li Mo didn't take the initiative to mention it, it is obvious that he does not have such qualifications now. The other side, Security Bureau, Security Department. There are very few people in the office of the 7th group today, only ordinary people like Qin Mo and Su Yin, and none of the awakened ones are there. Li Chengfeng and the others all rushed to the Imperial Hospital. At this time, he must take the initiative to take care of Li Yuan and have more relationships with her so that he can show his hospitality. Last time they were sick themselves, so they could only take advantage of Qin Mo. This time, only Li Yuan was injured, so naturally Qin Mo was not involved. Hey, these people are really annoying to death, doing these little tricks all day. Su Yin crossed her legs, showing displeasure, and muttered in a low voice. Sister Su, isn't it good to be idle? Besides, once they leave, the 7th group will be much cleaner. Qin Mo put his hands behind his head, sat by the window and leaned on a chair, squinting his eyes in the warm sun, with a carefree expression. Of course it's good to be idle, but they've been excluding them all the time, who can bear it? Su Yin raised her eyebrows, her temper has always been straight. Recalling many things in the past, Su Yin became more and more angry. She was about to complain, but when she got to her mouth, she just sighed heavily in the end, like a deflated ball. Hey, forget it, who made him an awakener? Su Yin wiped away the tears that didn't exist, and pretended to sob a few times. Woo. Then, would Sister Su share the bed with me tonight? Before she could finish speaking, Qin Mo interrupted her. You. Give you a punch. Su Yin instantly recovered her original appearance, baring her teeth and claws. The two quarreled in the office for a while, and they turned off the ignition just before getting off work. Looking at the beautiful sunset outside the window, the corners of Qin Mo's mouth slowly turned up, and he quietly opened the Gene Awakening panel. Light energy points, 18, freely assignable. Qin Mo glanced at the various attributes on the panel, carefully considered in his heart, and decided to adjust the distribution plan appropriately. He assigned 3 points to each of the 4 items of vision, strength, speed and defense. For the remaining 6 o'clock, Qin Mo added 2 o'clock to intelligence, breathing, and recovery, and put his hearing aside for the time being, waiting for tomorrow. After distribution, the warm current quickly flowed to every part of the body. At the same time, recovery, 62, awakening skill, super endurance. Among Qin Mo's 8 attributes, the sense of presence of recovery has never been very strong. This is the case when allocating points in the past. Most of the time, the points recovered are at the bottom, and his priority is the lowest. It's not that this attribute is useless, it's just that Qin Mo basically doesn't use it now. His steel body is too strong, and he can't get hurt at all when fighting. Before that, the biggest function of recovery was to quickly regain consciousness, which could quickly restore mental power when Qin Mo overused his brain, and weaken the existence of sequelae. But now it is different, recovering and awakening a very important skill, super endurance. As the name suggests, from now on Qin Mo will have a terrifying stamina and an extremely abnormal battery life. This skill is very useful. When Qin Mo breaks out at the limit speed now, he will slow down after a few seconds, and it is the same when using super power. He needs to slow down when he punches out before he can enter the limit state again. But after awakening super endurance, this limit time will be doubled. Don't look at this effect, which seems a bit hidden, but in fact it will be quite terrifying. A 3-minute high-speed sprint, no matter how fast you go, it's only 3 minutes. But 30 minutes, this is not a class at all. As a human being, the most important thing is persistence. Who doesn't want a golden gun that never falls? Feeling the changes in his body, Qin Mo couldn't help showing a bright smile on his face, brighter than ever. Afterwards, He tidied up the workstation, and then went off work with Su Yin with a thermos. The two separated at the entrance of the building. Su Yin went to the parking lot to drive, and Chin Mo ran home as usual. At 6:30, he stepped into the house on time with 2 big bags in his hand. It contained 3 caddies of eggs, half a caddy of carrots, and 5 caddies of beef and other miscellaneous vegetables, all of which he bought when he passed by the vegetable market. The price of goods in the imperial capital is very high, but Chin Mo's savings are still very sufficient, so he doesn't feel distressed. It's time to spend money. The quality of his current food has improved many times compared to the beginning, and he eats meat almost every meal. It took half an hour to cook, and 5 minutes to eat. Fortunately, Chin Mo had plenty of time, so he was free when he was idle. After eating, he didn't delay, and immediately went to wash the dishes, brush his teeth, and wash his hands. Chin Mo cleaned up the house after 8 o'clock, and habitually nestled on the sofa. Turn on your phone every day and take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. 35 degrees, the high temperature still continues. The corners of Chin Mo's mouth curled up, he smiled slightly, and then browsed the new news about the border with great interest. Soon, an inconspicuous piece of information caught his attention. The great Qin god of war will return to the imperial capital to report on his duties soon. Chin Mo frowned slightly, and muttered in a low voice, "Doesn't that mean that there will be other S-level awakened people who will be sent to the border? The border between the two countries must have an S-class sitting there all year round. This is a tradition, more like a tacit understanding, otherwise the existing balance will be broken. It's just, Sha Zhu came back, I don't know which S-rank of the 5 ancient families will be dispatched. In the current Dakan, the royal family is very weak. In recent years, there has been almost no sense of existence. I don't know if I can still command people from the 5 families." Chin Mo shook his head, but he didn't think deeply. It doesn't matter what conflicts there are between the aristocratic family and the royal family, anyway, it has nothing to do with him. However, what is certain is that once Sha Zhu returns to the imperial capital, it will inevitably have an impact on the existing structure. His prestige during this period, as well as his popularity among the people, are not small. Heaven and earth will be over there, I don't know how they will react. While thinking, Chin Mo silently let go of his hearing, and quickly radiated away into the distance. After a few seconds, he covered a radius of 100 miles. The super brain immediately analyzed and processed the massive amount of information, looking for the voice of the Tiandaway. However, half a minute passed and no results were retrieved. It seems that it is not within my range, Chin Mo whispered to himself. Afterwards, he withdrew his hearing and did not continue to investigate. The current Chin Mo's hearing is only 62, which has not yet reached the level of covering the entire imperial capital. It is normal to not be able to hear. Besides, Tiandaway just lost 2 A-level awakened people yesterday, so it must be very cautious now, and will not easily expose its traces. These 2 unlucky A-levels are obviously number 4 and no. 5. I still know number 9 and no. 3. Number 9 is a young woman, and number 3 is a high-ranking inner ghost hiding in the Li family in Qingyang. If the Tiandaway is arranged in order, there are at least 5 mysterious core members. Judging from the previous 2 times, the middle-aged man who talked to number 9 should have a high status. He can directly connect with number 3, maybe number 2 or no. 1. Chin Mo was thinking carefully in his heart. He was integrating the information collected several times before, analyzing and speculating on the internal structure of the Tiandaway. Is it possible that this person is the chief envoy of the Tiandaway? If he is number 2, what is the status and strength of no. 1. Chin Mo frowned slightly. Number 4 and number 5 are already A-level, and the higher code name has stronger strength, which is very reasonable. You know, they are targeting the Security Bureau, to put it bluntly, the Qingyang Li family. If they didn't consider Li's S-class patriarch, where did they get the confidence? S-rank, Chin Mo sighed with emotion in a low voice, and at the same time got up and walked towards the bedroom. Lying on the soft bed, he blinked, looking at the dark ceiling, his thoughts wandering. My current strength is comparable to that of an A-level awakener. If I go any higher, I will face an S-level. According to the information files of the Security Bureau, there is a huge difference between A-level and S-level. I don't know what it will be like to double all my existing attributes. Quote. The difference between heaven and earth is too vague. Qin Mo could only tell from the reading between the lines that there was a huge gap, but who knew how much the difference was? However, you can ask Chu Tianzhao. He is a core disciple of the Chu family in Zhenbei, and he must know more things. Of course, Qin Mo is not in a hurry. After all, the superhuman gene in him has just begun to awaken not long ago. He still has time. Thinking like this, he slowly closed his eyelids and fell asleep. Some people have sweet dreams, some people don't sleep all night. The Li family in Qingyang, the manor castle, is brightly lit. There is an antique grand teacher's chair in the front of the side room, which is made of high-quality red sandalwood, and the slight sandalwood that emits can make people feel peaceful. This chair alone costs a lot of money, and from this small detail, it is enough to spy on the transcendent status and terrifying strength of the Qingyang Li family. At this time, Li Mo was sitting on the chair, his eyelids were drooping, and his right hand was slowly rubbing between his brows. Besides him, there were 3 other people in the room, namely Li Mo, Secretary Li, and an old man from the 6th room. This old man is over 50 years old this year, and he is a veteran B-rank awakener. Moreover, he has been loyal to the Qingyang Li family for more than 30 years, and has profound qualifications. But now he doesn't have the respect and treatment he used to have. He is tightly tied up and kneeling on the ground with disheveled hair. A few days ago, Qin Mo broke into the Security Bureau's network to deliver a message to Li Mo. The Qingyang Li family secretly dispatched people to arrest the traitors of the Tiandawei, but in the end they were one step late, in vain. Li Mo knew at that time that an insider had leaked the news, and he kept asking Li Mo to investigate secretly, and now there is finally a result. The one kneeling now is the inner ghost. I never thought that you would betray the family. Li Mo didn't know when he opened his eyes, looked down at him from afar, and asked softly. Why, hee. Hearing this, the old man squeezed out a sneer from his throat, slowly raised his head, his eyes were red, full of red blood, staring at Li Mo. Ha 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 ha. His laughter gradually became crazy, and his facial expression also became ferocious. Why, I will tell you why when Qingyang Li's family is destroyed. The old man's eyes were full of pity. When the voice fell to the ground, a very subtle muffled sound suddenly sounded, which was so piercing and eye-catching in the silent room. Poof! The expression on the old man's face froze in an instant, his body limply fell to the ground, his head hit the ground heavily, and his eyes gradually lost their expression. Li Mo, who was standing at the side, changed his expression greatly, and quickly squatted in front of him. After a few breaths, he turned to look at Li Mo with an extremely ugly expression. Father, it's still a spiritual seed. Li Mo's expression didn't change much, he just waved his hand and said calmly, Secretary Li, deal with it. Yes, Secretary Li bowed slightly, respectfully. Afterwards, he stepped forward and dragged the man's body away from here. In the side room, only Li Mo and his son were left again. Until then, he sighed heavily, and there was an unconcealable look of exhaustion between his brows and eyes. Li Mo never thought that such a loyal person is actually a ghost hiding in Li's house. What he couldn't figure out was when and how did the Heaven and Earth Society infiltrate. This is definitely not the only ghost in the house, let's check. Yes, Father. A thorough investigation. Yes, Li Mo said in a deep voice. He clenched his fists tightly, his face was as gloomy as water. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.